Hello and welcome to Instant Transmission, a podcast where we discuss everything Dragon Ball and the key to producing lazy content. It's that time again where we pick the lowest of low-hanging fruit in the content creation world. Hopefully you remember to wash your judging gi because we're about to rank all of the biggest transformations in Dragon Ball. I'm your host Dayton, and once again I'm joined by my co-host Todd.
Hi.
Tonight's discussion is another live conversation where we rank all of the biggest transformations in the Dragon Ball franchise. We've chosen what we think are all of the most important transformations and even included a few others that we felt couldn't be left out. Our tier list goes all the way from the bottom at D tier, all the way back up to the legendary Z tier. For those listening on YouTube, we will be once again adding some visuals to help you follow along. So head on over to our channel at youtube.com/@ITDB podcast if you want to check out Todd's amazing video editing skills. And with all of that covered, was there anything you wanted to add before we got things started, Todd?
Just want to promote my amazing editing skills. And by that, I mean recording my screen. No, we can basically get started on this tier list.
Yeah, and the only things that I wanted to mention before we got started is that this tier list will not be including transformations in the manga or the movies. So we're mostly just covering the series here. And we are also leaving out fusion in general. That's kind of its own thing. So we're not really qualifying that as a transformation.
Yeah, good point. We'll talk about a few things that we're kind of leaving out here too, a few towards the end as well.
Yeah, so we've got our handy dandy tier list loaded up, ready to rock and roll. And I think we couldn't think of a better way to start than with the Saiyans and their just colossal amount of transformations to choose from.
Yeah, this is probably going to be half of the podcast, let's be honest.
Yeah, and we're just going to do things in order. There's no surprises here. We're going to be kicking things off with the one that started it all. Arguably the GOAT. We're going with Super Saiyan 1 to kick things off.
Yeah, starting strong here, right? So I've got our little image of Super Saiyan Goku. We're kind of talking about this as a transformation, not just from like the perspective of Goku going Super Saiyan for the first time. Although that moment is definitely iconic, and I think it's gonna make this one a heavy contender for like a high tier.
Yeah, and as far as Saiyan transformations go, this one's got to be the GOAT, right? Like it's got to be the one that superseded every other transformation that's really coming down the Saiyan lineup. It kind of set the tone for what a transformation could be. And I'm not ruling out nostalgia at all. Like I'm letting it just seep in. There's a big moment that's tied to it. And on top of that, this transformation was built up for a lot of episodes and you're kind of waiting for it to happen. You don't know when that moment's going to be. And then when it's finally unveiled, it's epic as hell. What it becomes later on in the series is kind of a different conversation. So I can't rule it out, but I can't take away how cool the reveal was either. So there's definitely two tales that go on here.
Yeah, and you make really good points because there's this is the iconic transformation, not just in Dragon Ball, but in anime, period. So it carries a lot of weight there. The weight that it carries just from like the story elements of Goku finally getting strong enough to defeat Frieza is big. The golden hair, at least when it was first revealed, was super cool. And unfortunately, I think it is tempered, kind of like what you said, Dayton, by it basically becomes an unused transformation, just basically being overshadowed in terms of power by all of the other transformations that our heroes kind of undergo. And add to that the fact that, as Vegeta says, it ends up becoming a Super Saiyan bargain sale. So I think it's hurt a little bit there.
There's at least some effort to try and find a place for it. It almost seems like it's later on, it becomes a form where you get that power up, you get that power boost, but it's not as taxing as maybe some of the later forms. So there's still a purpose to it. It does, some of that shine wears off. Actually, it wears off pretty quickly, almost immediately after uh Frieza, the Super Saiyan shine wears off as everybody's turning Super Saiyan. But I think for a lot of these transformations, they do get kind of superseded at some point. So I don't think that's really different from most of the other transformations we'll talk about. And I'm not going to let that weigh too much on where I think this should go, just because I think, as far as an unveiling of a transformation, I don't think it gets much more perfect than this. As far as a moment it's tied to, it's probably the biggest moment in Dragon Ball, arguably one of the biggest moments in Dragon Ball. So for me, I rank this one very highly. I don't let kind of the later interpretation of it weight down very much, because I think that's something that happens to a lot of other transformations. So I'm going to go ahead and put my vote out here. I think the original Super Saiyan transformation is probably, it's an A or Z, maybe Z tier for me.
I'm torn between those as well, to be honest with you. I might lean toward, I don't know. Like, there's a part of me that wants to put it in A because of those, like, downsides that we mentioned. But it's either A or Z, man. Like, you can't, it's such a good transformation. You can't knock it too much.
I definitely put more weight into where I rank a transformation based off of what its story was supposed to be at the time it was unveiled. Because Toriyama's notorious for writing something and then not knowing what to do with it later. So I can't hate it that much because he didn't know what to do with it later. The whole story leading up to it, its story arc, was perfect. I think after that, he just doesn't know what to do with it anymore. So if it doesn't go in Z tier, I don't know what else would go in Z tier. So for me, I think it has to be a Z tier.
I think I'm leaning in that way too. I agree with everything that you've said.
Now, if we go through a bunch of other stuff and we decide to move it down, don't be mad at us. But for now, I can't think of where else to put it.
Yeah, I also want to add that I really like it visually. I think we'll talk about a few of the other ones as far as visuals go, but the golden hair is really cool. The kind of like bluish green eyes, all of it works really well with Goku and his aesthetic. But yeah, well, I think we'll put it in Z tier for now. We might have to revisit it. I don't think it's going any lower than A.
Yeah. Yeah, it's minimum A tier. I think we're both in the same boat on that.
For sure. I think that takes us to the next one, moving straight down the list with Super Saiyan 2, right?
Yeah. Ugh. So I don't know. Why don't you kick this one off, since I kicked the first one off?
Okay. I mean, and it's funny because I even used the picture of Super Saiyan 2 Gohan here, because that is probably the most iconic Super Saiyan 2 moment. And I'll be honest, I think I'm going to ruffle a few feathers here because I don't like this transformation. It's hardly any different from Super Saiyan 2. I mean, young Gohan is probably the only one that it really looks different for. Goku's, like, one of his bangs goes up. Vegeta, the only difference that you can tell is that he's got lightning bolts around him. There are many times in the Buu arc where I cannot tell if Goku, Vegeta, or Gohan is in Super Saiyan 1 or Super Saiyan 2. And yes, so I think that's most of the bad points. It's really not visually interesting. Akira Toriyama completely forgot that this form existed.
I was about to mention that. I had heard that, and it almost sounds like it's something that can't be true because of how absurd it is. But no, that's definitely not a good point when your creator forgets that you exist.
Yeah, and I think part of that is because it is so. I mean, it's just not visually interesting or different from Super Saiyan 1, hardly at all. I think I want to just start with the bad on this one, because I have a lot of strong feelings about the bad for this one, but I think that there are some good points too. I mean, like you said, Dayton was Super Saiyan 1, the narrative beats, but do you want to take over for this part?
Oh, yeah. If you're hoping for me to say a bunch of good things, I'm not going to.
Oh, okay. Well, it sounds like you and I are on the same page about this
Yeah,
one.
it's not like this form causes any problems for me, right? The fact that it exists doesn't really break anything for me. So it's not like this form is a net negative, but it also doesn't really bring any positives for me. Where we see it with Gohan's fight against Cell, it's such an emotionally driven story arc that for me, the form transformation gets lost in all of the conversation and emotional journey that you're going through. And that's fine. Like it's gosh, it keeps coming back to the emotional weight of that story is so good that all of the other faltering elements kind of don't matter. And unfortunately, that's kind of where my opinion on Super Saiyan 2 lands is that for me it kind of doesn't matter because as soon as we're done with the Cell, as soon as we're done with Cell, we're already moving on to Super Saiyan 3 and everyone forgets that Super Saiyan 2 exists. And on top of that, I don't really understand like once we move past it, there's not really much of an argument as to where it slots into the lineup of utility. Super Saiyan 1's kind of a low power demand form that does give you that boost. Super Saiyan 2 is that to a slightly different degree, I guess. I don't know. Super Saiyan 2, it isn't very visually interesting or I guess you can't even tell that they're in Super Saiyan 2 half the time, kind of like what you mentioned. It kind of stinks because I feel like we're going from Super Saiyan 1, which I have nothing but praise, at least up to the reveal and through its main story. And then we go to Super Saiyan 2, where I forget exactly when Super Saiyan 2 happened.
Yeah. And that is a funny point too, because I mean the Super Saiyan 1 transformation, there was a lot of narrative buildup to it too. Which I mean you could kind of say the same thing about the narrative buildup to Gohan going Super Saiyan 2 in the Cell arc, but it's not about the transformation. It's about Gohan as a character.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think to your point, Dayton, that like you said, the narrative point of Gohan going Super Saiyan 2 against Cell is phenomenal, but the transformation doesn't matter. Like, I mean, it matters in the sense that it is the growth of Gohan. It doesn't matter as a transformation on its own, nor is it really interesting on its own. I don't think either one of us really feels super strongly about this one. Do we want to go into where we're going to rate this guy?
Yeah. Initially, I'm thinking C tier. Because D tier, I'm kind of reserving, and I don't know if anything will go in there. But D tier is usually I actively dislike it. I don't actively dislike Super Saiyan 2, but I also don't really like it either. So I feel like C tier is where I would put it.
I agree with you 100%. Yeah, I don't think it's like a terrible transformation. I think there are a lot of points against it. I think C tier is where it belongs, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. Yeah. Solidly in C tier, and we're early in this tier list, so we reserve the right to move anything as we go further into this.
Absolutely.
Let's go ahead and go further with Super Saiyan 3, which, oh man, I have such weird feelings about this one.
This is a fun one to talk about.
Because I like that they tried to do something different, right? When I hear Super Saiyan 3, the image of Goku pops in my head in Super Saiyan 3. It's very visually distinct. It stands out way more than Super Saiyan 2 did. But also at the same time, it's weird to me because Super Saiyan 3 was more or less learned off screen, so we don't really get that kind of cool triumphant moment. Like, there's not that big story hitch to it. On top of that, Goku sandbagged with it when he first unveiled it, which is also weird. And then, I don't know, also, he doesn't have eyebrows. I don't know what's up with that. That's a weird thing.
It is a weird thing. I don't like the no eyebrows visually. I do like you said, that it is at least a little bit visually different. I mean, I would prefer it to be more visually different than it is, but it does a better job than a lot of transformations on this list, if we're being honest. The long hair, I mean, even like Sean Schemmel in the dub version does a good job of even changing his intonation when he's in this form. He's more, he's less goofy, less like the goofy Goku, and more just like almost like Goku's Batman voice, just like kind of gruff sounding, very serious. Um, I I know people don't like that this was earned off screen, but I deeply love the transformation moment for this one. I mean, even the dub like dialogue for this of him being like, all right, here's Super Saiyan 1, here's 2, and then this is what it's like to go even further beyond. Like that is so good every single time I watch it. Um other than that, oh, I wanted to talk about I one of the things I like about this form is that unlike many of the transformations, this form has a downside. This one basically eats up your energy. Goku I mean basically loses his time on Earth since he was back for a day from the dead, because he uses this transformation, and then when he's fighting Kid Buu, he can't stay in this form because it just consumes so much energy. To me, that is a big plus for this at least being interesting in terms of like with making you decide which transformation to use.
Yeah, and I think that was why we, and spoiler alert, in one of our previous episodes where we ranked all the techniques in Dragon Ball, we had Kaioken ranked fairly highly because we liked that there was this kind of interesting give and take with it, where it gives you power, but also it's severely harsh on your body and damaging to yourself. So there's almost this kind of built-in time limit to it. There's kind of something similar with that to Super Saiyan 3, where you are on that timer. You can't maintain that form. So you've got to, while you're in it, you've got to make good use of that time. So you're right. There is actually an interesting element to it. It's more interesting than Super Saiyan 2, hands down. It's just, for me, it's also kind of one of the weirder ones. So I think I agree with you. I think I know where this one's going to end up, though, if you're ready to give your rating on this one.
I'm ready. You've started a lot of these. I'm leaning towards B, but I honestly wouldn't. I would be okay with putting this in A, but I think B is where it needs to go.
I agree with B. The reason why I don't think A is, I don't know. This form just feels very just kind of written into the show. I don't feel very attached to it. I'm not grounded to this like maybe I am some other techniques where there's, I don't know, like some cool moments or cool story, or I need something a little bit more than just it being interesting for me to put it in the A tier. And you're right, the dialogue from Schemmel's fantastic. When he's going into that Super Saiyan 3 and then he's got that more serious tone. I agree with you there. It's better than average. It's better than blah. So I think it is above average. I think B tier solid for it. I think there are some techniques that I think are more suiting for A tier than Super Saiyan 3. So I'll bite and I'll go with the B tier with you.
Yeah, that's fair. I think B is a nice place for that to settle.
Ooh, I think you're going to be definitely the person who needs to lead off this next one.
I was thinking the same. We are continuing in our Super Saiyan stream here. This is going to move us into GT category with Super Saiyan 4.
I have not seen GT before anyone asks.
I think Dayton's watched bits and pieces of it like 20 years ago. So I think, Dayton, you're at least familiar, certainly visually, with Super Saiyan 4.
Visually, I'm aware of it. The photos of it have shown up in a lot of places, and right off the bat, that's all I can give an opinion on. I think it's at least an interesting looking form.
So this one, I have some mixed opinions about this one. It is in GT and in the original run of the Dragon Ball anime, it is arguably the most powerful. It is, I guess it's difficult to achieve. Like, there was a whole process where Goku had to turn into the Golden Ozaru, the Golden Great Ape form, which we will also talk about, and then kind of like learn to control and harness that to transform into Super Saiyan 4. So I like that it's an on-screen earned transformation. That's a positive for it. It is boy, is it visually different. That is probably my favorite part about this one, is that, and I like that it harkens in its in its aesthetic, it harkens back to the Saiyan origins. I mean, Goku has like red fur covering parts of his body. His hair is like this long black mane behind him. He's got these kind of like yellow eyes with red outlines to it. And he has his tail, which is also super cool, which I forgot about too, that even to get into the monkey form, he had to have his tail regrown in the first place. So there's quite a few obstacles to this one. It is I'm trying to think of how to. I think my only gripe about this one, and Dayton, I think you and I wanted to talk about this a little bit briefly, is I don't like that it's called Super Saiyan 4. I can understand that obviously it's tied to the Saiyan heritage, but if you look at our Super Saiyan forms like 1, 2, and 3, all of them have the gold hair. There's some argument with Super Saiyan 3 that it kind of like leans into, okay, we're getting hairier, there's no eyebrows, we're more primal, maybe that's leading into this. I just feel like it should have a different name. Beyond that, I think it looks great.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, now that I actually know how you get into Super Saiyan form, it almost sounds like you don't need to be able to access 3 or 2 or 3 in order to get into 4. It sounds like you need to be able to go Super Saiyan, turn into a great ape, and then turn into a Super Saiyan while you're a great ape. Sounds like those are the prerequisites, right?
Kind of. I don't even know if being able to turn Super Saiyan, I guess it would make sense that that's a prerequisite since it's called Super Saiyan 4. But Goku, I think, turns into the golden great ape form. Strangely, he's on another planet and he's looking at the full. I don't know what to call it. He's looking at the full moon that is the Earth.
Oh, okay. All right.
And that's how he turns into, if I remember correctly, that's how he turns into the Golden Ozaru. And he goes out of control, and then Pan has to calm him down. Pan has to be like, hey, you're my grandpa. Like, you don't want to hurt people. You're here to help and save people.
So it wasn't like some like purple dinosaur he met 5 minutes ago that calmed him down?
Yeah. Good old Tree of Might. So yeah, I mean, at least Pan got to do something worthwhile, which is, for those who have watched GT, is not common. So it gets a point in its favor in that way. Honestly, I think it's a pretty good transformation overall. Do you have any other thoughts about it, Dayton, based on what I said, I guess?
I mean, it looks cool. I like that being able to access it is more interesting than just like get strong. Like there's actually some, I don't know, like almost like some ritualistic elements to it, which is cool because it ties into like their Saiyan heritage, and it's visually looks like the logical path of a monkey man. I don't really know where I'm going with this. I don't know. It looks cool, and I'll leave it there.
That's totally fair. I'll start with my take on this one as far as where to place it. I'll be honest, I don't have a lot bad to say about it beyond, really, I would probably change the naming convention. I'm struggling to really come up with a whole lot that's bad about it. I would honestly put this in A tier, and I don't really.
Yeah, I'd be fine with that. And my gut was saying strong B, so okay. A tier is not really like, I'm not reaching much for that. I mean, honestly, the worst slight against it is that it's in GT. Like, that's its biggest downside.
The funny thing is that this form, and maybe the last episode of GT, are probably the best things to come out of GT, period. So
we can give it an A tier. It's one of the more interesting transformations in Dragon Ball, visually speaking, and I like that there's some work you have to do to get to it. So I'm a fan of it. It can go in A tier. Fully signing off on that. Speaking of weird ritualistic transformations, why don't we talk about Super Saiyan God?
Oh man. Well, you've seen both versions of this transformation in terms of the movie and the anime, Dayton. I mean, the movie is phenomenal. The movie as a whole, as well as like the visuals for this transformation in the movie, look fantastic. We do have, like you said, Dayton, we have a ceremony where five Saiyans have to basically give their energy to one Saiyan, including little Pan and Videl's belly. Um, this form exceeds Super Saiyan 3 and allows Goku to fight against the god of destruction Beerus. However, I two things. I don't like the visual for this one. I don't like the skinny Goku. He gets like the skinny arms and stuff to kind of like indicate that his power is coming from being accessing god power rather than like his muscles. Which I don't like that part. I also don't like that it looks a lot like Kaioken to me. There's a lot of red going on in here that you're like, it looks too similar to Kaioken in that way. And then to say nothing of the fact that this should not be named Super Saiyan at all. This should just be God form, or they should have come up with a different name. But you can tell that that's like that ridiculous naming convention makes no sense because the next one, Super Saiyan God, Super Saiyan, absolutely silly.
Yeah, I'm very torn on Super Saiyan God because on one hand, I actually like the red look. I think it looks good. I agree that the skinny look is I don't like that part of it. That's really jarring to me. But I like the red look. I also think it works because Kaioken was a technique learned from godlike entities. So the fact that he brings on a red aura when obtaining god power, I think it checks out. I'm here for it.
Okay.
So I don't mind that. The ritual is really weird and kind of ham-fisted. It kind of feels like it's kind of a hand wave for a power boost rather than something earned. At least with from what it sounds like, Super Saiyan 4, there's at least some level of trial you had to kind of complete. This didn't really have that. We kind of just got there. And I mean, I think even they talk about it when they're going through it, the transformation or the lead up to it, that they don't like power that they don't earn. And this definitely feels like a power boost that he didn't earn. You could argue that he earned it through the friendships he had formed. But that doesn't carry much water for me. So I visually, I think it's okay. Like, I think it's above average, but not great. As far as the unveiling of it, I think the movie did it better. The movie looks fantastic. Also, I've seen clips of people reacting to that movie moment when Vegeta flips on the red and people lost their goddamn minds. And they should have because it was really cool. Also, I can't think of a more fitting look for Vegeta than him in the Super Saiyan God form. Like, it looked rad as hell.
This form was made for him. Honestly, and we'll talk more about this with the next form too. The color palettes sometimes are like, it depends on the character. Like, this one looks fine on Goku, but it looks phenomenal on Vegeta. I actually like your point quite a bit about Kaioken being like a godly form or a godly technique, and this kind of maybe having some tie in there. I don't know if that's intentional, but I that is my head canon now. I like that. Yeah, I don't know. There are some problems with this one. I do like I know you mentioned that this doesn't feel like an earned transformation. It's certainly not. The one thing I like though that they do with this one is that, as you said, Goku specifically says that out loud, like in universe, is like, I don't like this power because I didn't earn it on my own. So I like that he at least addresses that in the narrative.
Yeah. So this is a tough one for me because there's some interesting visual things. There's some interesting elements of its story and the build up to it. But overall, it's still kind of just a color swap at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I don't know what interesting elements this form really adds. And that's what I'm really kind of struggling with here is, what new elements to the formula does Super Saiyan God introduce? Can you think of any?
there's arguments for like the Tournament of Power in both the anime and the manga where Goku is using it. I think in sometimes in the anime he's using it as a way to like conserve energy, and then I think in the manga he's actually using it because it's a faster form. So I do like that. Um Beyond that, not really, and even that's a bit of a stretch.
So for me, and maybe you can be the tiebreaker here, I'm somewhere between a strong C and a low B. I don't know how you're feeling.
That's pretty much right where I'm at too. If I had to compare this, so we've got Super Saiyan 3 in B and Super Saiyan 2 in C.
This is a tough one, just because it's kind of different, but not super different.
Yeah.
Maybe strong C. Is this a strong C?
I think it's a strong C. I'm going to bump it in front of Super Saiyan 2. It has too many points against it. Like I was originally thinking B, but there's just too much going against it.
It doesn't really change the formula of the fight, really. It's kind of a power boost. It is interesting that maybe he gets a little faster, but they don't really, I don't think that point is emphasized enough. I don't feel that speed. If he was insanely faster, then maybe, but I mean, it just seems like he's a little bit faster.
Yeah, that's a good point. It doesn't really get emphasized enough. I think that pretty much brings us to the next one. Speaking of palette swaps,
this is one right here. this is going to be an interesting conversation.
Super Saiyan Blue, or what was originally called Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan, which I hate more than I can express. I don't like this form. I'll be honest. I don't like it at all. It's a palette swap. It's basically like the new standard for Super Saiyan. It's just like, okay, everything before it basically feels obsolete. I mean, like you've said about some of the previous ones, it doesn't feel earned. Like it is achieved off screen and then revealed to us when Goku fights Frieza. I'm struggling to think of anything good to say about this form.
Yeah, that's all right. So I thought I was going to be the Debbie Downer on this one, but turns out you're right here with me. I actually actively sort of dislike this form because I feel like this form is a big jump in power, and it widens the gap between Goku and Vegeta and everybody else in the series by an amount to where they don't feel relevant at all, not even a little bit. Now, I know we were already kind of there with Super Saiyan 3, but it felt like, maybe there's a way to still be relevant and catch up a little bit. I feel like with Super Saiyan Blue, the second that was introduced, every side character became basically useless. And everything that was happening in the Tournament of Power with the side characters kind of felt moot the entire time. They didn't matter.
Yeah, because Goku or Vegeta could just come over and mop up that fight.
Yeah, any fight that any of the side characters won, Goku and Vegeta could have won that fight in 1 second. Like, it wouldn't have cost them anything.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with you. I also want to talk about, we've called it a palette swap. It's a bad palette swap. I think some people have expressed...
That's a hot take. Oh, man, I want to hear this.
I'll give some more information because I think a lot of people have said that they like the blue color. I don't like it. I don't like it because it clashes with the blue that Goku has on his wristbands, on his belt. It's a different shade, so it clashes there. They also don't change the color of the Super Saiyan eyes. And if you look at the eyes compared to the hair, they're like just slightly different colors, and it looks terrible.
So you've got like what, 3 or 4 different blues depending on, because I think even Vegeta wears the Saiyan armor with the blue spandex underneath, right?
It's worse on Vegeta. It looks terrible on Vegeta.
Oh gosh. Well, okay, and I don't remember them mentioning anything about the upsides and downsides of this form. It just seems like a power boost unless I'm really missing anything.
The only thing that I can think of that's kind of unique, and I guess this is, I think, true of Super Saiyan God as well, but people cannot sense their ki because they're basically tapping into like God ki, which has its advantages because people can't tell how powerful they are, I suppose. I guess there's also the advantage that Goku, because it's I think it's they say it's more like a calm form than like traditional Super Saiyan. Goku is able to use Kaioken with it. It actually mixes with that.
Okay. Well, I guess that's neat. But it's neat because Kaioken's neat.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't really vibe with this form. It doesn't really offer too much to me. I mean, don't get me wrong. New forms can be exciting, but I don't know what's supposed to make me excited about this one other than it's a new form. And as far as visually speaking, it's weird because I feel like I've seen it animated differently depending on which fight you're looking at or which part of the series you're in, where like they have different like color animations and different shades. And I don't, it feels like one of the least consistent forms that they've unveiled.
Yeah. I totally agree with you.
I know where I'm putting this one, and it's going to ruffle some feathers.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'll come out and say it. This is a D tier for me, 100%.
I agree. Of the Super Saiyan forms, for me, this one is the worst. And I don't necessarily hate it, but I don't like it.
There's very little positive I have to say about it.
Which honestly, I'm kind of glad where everything ended up because we've got a pretty nice smattering of Super Saiyan rankings here. So I don't think anyone can be upset. I think this is about as fairly as we could have ranked these.
That's true. It sounds like you and I for most of these have been at least pretty close to on the same page too, which is pretty funny.
We do have technically a couple more Saiyan forms, but it depends on how you want to look at them. And the first one we're going to get into is the legendary Super Saiyan form, which is in this conversation because of the Tournament of Power and Kale unveiling it.
We are cheating a little bit here, but not. It's a technicality.
Yeah, we're loopholing this. We're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the Broly movie and how awesome that is, because technically that's all the same.
Yeah, we did say we weren't really doing movie forms, but this form is, I mean, by super standards, is canonical. I mean, as far as Kale's, there's so many like different ways that they kind of express this form, and even the one in the new Super Broly movie, some people call that something different technically. I'm gonna lump that in with legendary Super Saiyan because it's, to me, is the same thing. I don't like the way that this is represented with Kale. It almost seems like too like weirdly strong, and you're also like, I don't even think they call it legendary. They're just like, oh, she's out of control, and then she's beating up Super Saiyan Blue for some reason. It's also like visually, I don't think it's very interesting because it's basically just Super Saiyan with like a green tint to it. I think they usually, like Broly and Kale, oftentimes their eyes are just fully white. They kind of like lose control. I don't know. It's pretty boring to me, to be honest. But the Broly movie representation for this is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. As far as visually speaking, there's not a ton that's going on the screen. It's a different color palette, which is fine. It actually looks good on Broly, I think. It looks a little weird on Kale because I feel like there's some color clashing that's going on. But on Broly, I think it looks good, especially with like the gold and the green look very well because it's almost like a royal kind of gold. And I don't know. It works well for me. But you're right. Visually speaking, there's not a lot else going on. But narratively speaking, I do like that this is kind of like a legendary freak mutation that you're either blessed or cursed with kind of randomly. And I like that there's like this huge just wealth of power that you have access to, but you basically don't have control over it. So it does create some interesting story arcs. And I mean, it's a hell of a downside for a hell of an upside. So I don't mind it from a narrative standpoint. Visually, it could use some work, but I mean, the Broly movie was really good, so it's getting a point for that.
That's true. There is also something that's a little bit weird to me in that it's called the Legendary Super Saiyan, but you've through like the Dragon Ball Z narrative, you're kind of told like, oh, there's this legend called the Super Saiyan. There's only like one every 10,000 years or whatever they say for it. And you kind of get the impression when Goku turns into Super Saiyan, you're like, oh, you know, this is the legend coming to life. This is the legendary Super Saiyan. And yet, that wasn't the legendary Super Saiyan. This, like, at birth, whatever you want to call it, defect, mutation, is the legendary Super Saiyan. It just feels, I don't know, a little bit weird and, like, shoehorned in there.
I mean, for me, the way I view it is that, like the Super Saiyan form is just tapping into like, how do I describe? Are you familiar with like midichlorians in Star Wars?
I am, yes.
So it's almost like, you know, all Saiyans have like a midichlorian count, except if you hit above a certain point, then like you kind of go bonkers nuts. So I almost view like the Super Saiyan form that we're familiar with, I almost view it as it's almost like a knockoff of the actual Super Saiyan form. That's not the real thing. The Broly Super Saiyan form is that wealth of power. Goku and the others are all just like accessing like 1/10 of it or whatever pass me down little bit amount they have access to. That's what they're tapping into. The Broly form is the like that's actually the real like 100% Super Saiyan form. And it's kind of a blessing to not be able to access that.
That's an interesting take on it. I could see that. It's funny that you mentioned midichlorians because there's a thing called S cells.
No, that is not real. Is that canon?
100%. I'm pretty sure it was released by, I think it was released by Akira Toriyama. I can't remember if it was after Boo or if it was when Super started, but it was kind of an explanation to why like Goten and Trunks could go Super Saiyan so young and so early is because, well, basically because their fathers gave them Super Saiyan semen to.
Oh God! Yeah, I feel like you've mentioned this to me a long time ago, and I forgot about it, and I'm kind of wishing I could go back to just not knowing about it.
I forgot about it until you mentioned the midichlorians, and a lot of people like. When S cells came out, they were like, "You mean like midichlorians?"
It's like, guys, stop doing that. Let the lesson be hard work. Stop making it People of Destiny because it really kills the relatability of any of this.
Yeah, it is a bummer. Which is, I mean, yeah, it's one of the reasons. Another reason why I don't really like this form is because it's basically just you're just born with it.
Or maybe it's make believe. So. Yeah, I think for me, the form itself, I think I personally like it more than Super Saiyan God. I don't know if it's B tier though. It's another strong C, weak B. I'm not sure where exactly I put it.
I would definitely put it in C. So
C tier.
If that'll, yeah, maybe that's like the push that it needs into the C tier.
I just like it because there's actually at least some attempt at story and upside and downside with it. Whereas the other ones in C tier, I feel like don't really matter.
That's fair. I'll put it at the top of C then. I think also, if
Super's Kale's use of it and their depiction of the legendary Super Saiyan in the actual series, I thought was really kind of piss poor. So I think that's enough to keep it out of B tier for me.
Yeah, and that's fair. I think I'm thinking a lot about like Kale and like the original Broly. And admittedly, the Super Broly movie did a much better representation of this. So I mean, yeah, with that in mind, I could put this at the top of C.
All right. Well, we're definitely not doing a color swap in this next one because we're hitting up the Great Ape slash Uzaru form with for the Saiyans, and this is one of the more transformation-y transformations in our lineup.
I like this one a lot, if I'm being honest. I mean, this was originally, I mean, this was probably like outside of maybe Oolong or the rabbit guy. This might be like the first OG transformation because this was in like the first 16 episodes of Dragon Ball where we got Goku turning into a giant monkey and losing control and almost killing some of his friends.
Well, and definitely killing his grandpa, which is insane. Yeah, so this is something that's been around since day one and has massive narrative beats to it. Visually, it's very interesting. There's upside, there's downside to it. This is a form that I think kind of has everything you want out of a transformation in a show. I can't think of anything really that negative to say about this because I love the way it was depicted almost every time I've seen it. The only thing I guess I could critique is I don't know what the rules are around growing your tail back and that downside, but other than that, I don't really have anything bad to say about the Great Ape form.
I'm right there with you, honestly. It's cool. Like it makes you bigger and stronger, but we also find like some guys like during the fight with Vegeta when he turns into an Ozaru, the fighters are like, "Oh, you know, he's going to be big and slow." And then you find out that he's really very fast. He can hear incredibly well. The downside, or maybe I guess its weakness is the tail, kind of like you mentioned, Dayton, where they every time this transformation comes up, they're like, okay, we got to cut the tail off. Um, yeah, I mean it's great. Like it's visually interesting. It has a tie-in to the backstory of all of our main characters, tying back into like their Saiyan alien heritage. There are some people who can control it and some people who can't. The trigger for the transformation is not it's not just anybody can go into it. You have to have the full moon. There is the full or the moon ball or the Bloodwave ball or whatever.
That's
but
cool though. I love that there's like
yeah,
a technique tie-in to like being able to use this form.
yeah, I totally agree. I This is gonna be a high one. I don't have anything bad to say.
Can you think of a reason why we shouldn't put it in Z tier?
I'm trying to think of like
I mean, just it's got the narrative beat too of just when little Goku's talking about how the monster came out at night and killed his grandpa, and everyone's just like, "Oh no!" just like that. Oh, you don't know who it was, do you?
yeah, there's foreshadowing for it. There's narrative elements, not only for the character who uses it, but also for the characters surrounding that character. And then it continues to come back with Vegeta when we find out that, oh, this is why Goku can turn into a monkey. It's because he's an alien. I honestly, I can't think of any reason to not put it in Z tier.
Yeah. I mean, oddly enough, unlike Super Saiyan, this one isn't kind of like beaten down as we move on throughout the show. We don't really see it kind of becoming a background transformation, kind of like the original Super Saiyan. This is probably one of the best handled transformations in Dragon Ball, full stop.
Yeah, I really can't think of anything bad about it. It sounds like you're on board. Z tier, is it?
Z tier. I love it. I've almost nothing bad to say about it. Actually, I don't have anything bad to say about it. I think it's a perfect transformation.
Yeah, I'm bumping it in front of Super Saiyan as much as that is. I think we had some at least a few bad things to say about Super Saiyan, and we had nothing bad to say about this one. So
No, it's every time we see it, it's a good either narrative experience or it's visually interesting. I I love this transformation. I think it's a great add to the series. It also makes the Saiyans feel more alien, which is a good thing.
yeah, yeah, I totally agree. I think that brings us on to the next one, which we're going back to palette swaps,
Oh god.
everybody, with Super Saiyan Rose.
Yeah, this one I don't understand this one other than I think it was an excuse to give the bad guy of this like mid filler arc a different look cuz I don't think they really explain what powers he gets from it or what the upside and downsides are or I don't know. It's more or less just kind of him mixing his evil god Vuju with a Super Saiyan body is more or less the vibe I got from it.
In my opinion, and I know that they kind of like you're saying they did it to give the bad guy a different look or different transformation, but in my opinion, this should just be Super Saiyan Blue. I mean, we literally have Super Saiyan God, which turns into, when they go Super Saiyan Blue. And so the fact that, I mean, yes, this is a God entity who took over Goku's body and then is transforming. That should just be Super Saiyan Blue.
Yeah,
Like,
I don't get the point of this form. If anything, it introduces questions that maybe shouldn't have been introduced. I mean, I don't necessarily hate it, but it also is falling to that category of I don't think I like it. I can't think of any real positive to say about it. I don't know what it's offering. It just feels it kind of cheapens transformations a little bit, if anything.
I agree with you. The only thing that I'll say that I like about this one is I do, even though it is only a palette swap, I do like the visual, like the auras that come off of Goku Black and Zamasu, whatever you want to call him in this form. Um, if only because it gives off that like eerie pink purple color, and you're like, oh, this guy looks like a bad guy. But that is like the only positive I will give this one.
Yeah, they could have just done it with key energy. They didn't need to
Yeah.
make it a whole, and they even introduce it and everything and make a big deal out of it. And so, if you're gonna make a big deal out of it, I'm allowed to judge it a little bit more critically. And I'm gonna judge this one. I'm not gonna waste much time on this one. I think this is a D tier. I think it is actually not a huge detriment, but a slight detriment to the Dragon Ball universe by it existing, in my opinion.
I totally agree with you. Yeah, I had one small point to give it, and that's about it.
Yeah, and man, this is gonna be like Whiplash. We're flipping over to something real different with this one, and people probably forgot about this name, but this is one of the earliest transforming characters in Dragon Ball, and this is Launch, who has Blue Launch and Blonde Launch, because I don't think they have separate names. I think it is just the same character.
I think you're right. I even had to check for this one as far as like transformations go. Uh I mean it's definitely a sort of transformation. It's almost like the prelude to Super Saiyan in a weird way. Um and this one is interesting because Launch actively has a wildly different personality when she changes between blue and yellow. She's, very meek and kind and sweet in her blue form, and then in her blonde form, she's pretty rough and tumble and will shoot you if you look at her wrong.
And she's basically a gag character, right? I don't know if I'm allowed to call her that, but she kind of comes off as a gag character anyway. And for a little bit, it's kind of funny and I don't mind it, but this is a character who I think may have overstayed her welcome for me, where that gag kind of got old pretty quick. And it was kind of the same gag over and over again of, oh, she's so nice. Oh, well, she's blonde and shooting a machine gun in the air now. Okay. All right. I think she was also supposed to be kind of like a foil to Roshi being an old pervert. Because she would like put him in his place, but I don't like that gag either. So
Mhm.
having a character that plays off of that, I also don't really like. So ugh. If this was a shorter run, I would probably rate it a little bit less harshly, but I feel like I spent too much time with this character and the gag kind of got old.
I feel the same. It's honestly hard for me to separate this as a transformation from the character herself because it's so interwoven, and she is obviously the only one who has this transformation. But yeah, I mean, she's just not even a compelling character, right? Like, I think the most interesting thing that happens with her is Goku goes to save her and doesn't realize that she's being chased by the police because he meets Blue Launch, and it's Blonde Launch who is like robbing banks and stuff. And then once that is resolved, which is in like an episode, she's effectively a background character, or as you said, Dayton, a gag character. Like, there's not a lot positive going on there.
Yeah, I don't have much more to say about this character. She doesn't really have a big impact, so I don't know. I'm C or D, somewhere in there.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat.
She doesn't like break the universe, so it's hard for me to be like I actively dislike her, but I also don't really think she adds very much, and I don't really get her transformation. So just throw her in D tier. I don't think it really matters.
I think it's D. I'm trying to decide if she. I'm just gonna put her at the end of D. Yeah.
Yeah. So unfortunately, it's a gag that ran on a little bit too long, and we're just gonna throw her down there, and then she could be high D, low D, doesn't matter. She's in D tier.
Yeah, definitely. I think
But
that
we do have a strong follow up with Master Roshi and his strong muscle form or max power form, depending on which wiki you look at. And I'm not gonna lie, I wish we saw more of this form because the first time you see it, freaking knocked my goddamn socks off.
I I mean, as somebody who loves Dragon Ball, and Dragon Ball was like the reason that I even started going to the gym and lifting weights, I love this form. It's so silly. It's like, I mean, it's Dragon Ball came out in the 80s, but when you have like this scrawny old man who presents himself and you're like, oh, this guy's, what is this guy gonna do? And then he just like takes his shirt off and gets yoked out of his mind to blast off like a Kamehameha, I think, when he first presents himself in this form. And then watching him like later in the Battle of Gods movie and watching him use this form to actively like fight some of the minions and bad guys. No, I'm sorry, I said this wrong last time. It's the Resurrection F movie. I love it. I really enjoy getting to see Master Roshi in combat, and it's just a really cool, like, funny gag while also like is just, I mean, it's visually interesting to see this yoked out old man.
Well, and it's in line with the character too, right? Like it's a gag that works with the character. This is Toriyama telling jokes not at a character's expense. This is using the character's persona for jokes. And it's done correctly here because he's a martial arts master. He's one of the best in his fields of combat. He invented his own school. So the fact that he could yoke up and kick some ass is absolutely in line with what you could expect a character like him to do. So I'm 100% for it. Is it ridiculous? Absolutely. Is it over the top? 100%. Should he be doing it? Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Master Roshi should be getting just jacked and then just beating the snot out of people. Are there downsides to this form? I have no idea. They never really talked about it. I also don't really care because it's awesome.
Admittedly, it seems like he can't use it for long periods, right? So kind of like a Super Saiyan 3 sort of thing. I also want to say this is a weird point to add to this one. However, I love in the real world going to conventions and seeing people cosplay as Muscle Master Roshi. It is one of my favorite cosplays to see.
Oh my gosh, that's so good. Yeah, oh man. Yeah, I really only have good things to say about this one. I mean, the only couple downsides is that we don't see this very often. So which is, that's not a good downside because it, like, I can't critique the form because we don't see it enough, but I want to see it enough and I don't get it enough. So yeah, I am going to critique it for that. Um, and I also don't really know, like, he's really the only person who yokes out specifically like this. We've seen moments kind of similar, like with Goku and Frieza bulking up, but he's
Yeah.
the only person who kind of tremendously bulks up like this, and it isn't a downside, like, say, with Trunks when he bulked up to fight Cell.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's just because I think it's fun and funny and goofy, but it, like you said, it really fits with the character, and it's a great. It's one of those gags that is really tied well into the narrative and the character, plays to the character's strengths. So I would have a hard time putting this anywhere lower than A personally.
I think A tier is perfect. The things that keep it out of Z tier is one, it's not a terribly like important form.
Yeah.
So it's, I feel like with the ones in Z tier, there's some big moments that you're really tied to and really grounds you in the universe. Master Roshi yoking up is not grounding me in the universe. It's fun. It's awesome. But there's not as much emotional or narrative weight tied to his muscle form. It's also just fun. I think that's the thing that carries it so far for me, is that you understand it's supposed to be fun, and it is fun. It's what it says on the tin, and I can't criticize it at all for that. It doesn't get any bonus points for being what it's supposed to be, but I'm not knocking it down because I ordered something and I got exactly what I ordered.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it has just a small bit of narrative weight, just in the fact that you understand, like, okay, this guy is not just a weak old man, and when he uses it, he's also using the Kamehameha, which is like, all of that kind of leads into Goku being like, hey, teach me how to fight. So there's some narrative elements, but I also agree with you, Dayton, that it's not like Goku going Super Saiyan narrative elements.
Yeah, I don't have any problems with it. There are probably ways where it could, if they just use it more and do some awesome shit with it, it would go in a Z tier, like, full stop with me. But
Yeah.
we've only seen it really a couple times, and even part of that was just like in the Tournament of Power, and in, because we can't really judge the movies we're not supposed to, but in the Tournament of Power is definitely kind of shoehorned in, like, hey, you remember muscle form, huh? And it's just like, yeah, I do. I wish you weren't using it here though.
Yeah, that is a good point.
So,
But yeah.
full marks. A is a perfectly great spot for it. And yeah, I'll go ahead and walk us into the next one here, which this is one that we debated on whether it was a technique or a transformation. We were kind of confused. But we figured we'd toss it in here just that way we could talk about it. This is Piccolo, and this is his big Piccolo form.
Yeah, so for those who maybe don't remember, if you didn't watch Dragon Ball, this is used in I think it's the 23rd Tenkaichi Budokai. It's where Goku and Piccolo fight in the finals, and Piccolo gets massive. Doesn't really work in his favor very much, but it makes for a really fun fight because Goku is like running around underneath him, hitting in the back of the knee. Eventually gets to the point where Piccolo gets even bigger to try to compensate for his deficiencies, and that allows Goku to like go down into his throat. So as far as like making for an interesting, unique fight, I really, really like this form.
I also think from just like a visual storytelling perspective, having the big evil tyrant towering over our hero who appears small on the screen is like, that's an epic framing. So just from a narrative framing perspective, that's pretty cool. Like, I like that they did that because getting big isn't exactly, I don't know, the most creative thing to do, right? Like, what did he do? He got big. But from a storytelling perspective, and the way they used it, where Goku's like kind of staying out of sight, out of mind sort of thing, and hitting Piccolo from all these weird angles when they're fighting, they do a good job of taking kind of what I would say is kind of a small twist to the fight and actually making it feel much bigger than it actually could or should be. And I think it's well done. I like that they brought it back in the superhero movie. I think it's well done there, and also it looks freaking awesome watching Cell Max and Big Piccolo fight in like a kaiju battle. 10 out of 10, fucking awesome. But yeah, as far as downsides for this go, I mean, he did just get big. It's not the most interesting idea I've heard of. It's also not used very often, so I don't know if there's maybe more that we could do to develop this. And yeah, I don't know. I feel like I like the times they did use it, all like two of them. I would have liked to have seen this more and it been a bigger part of Piccolo's development, because I feel like this is something that was discarded far too early, and especially with how crazy things get later on in Dragon Ball. Like, I want to know what weird stuff they could have come up with him getting big. So I feel like there's a big missed opportunity with this quote unquote transformation.
I agree with everything you said. This is maybe as far as visually, maybe a small step above a palette swap for me, because it's just a larger scale model of the same character. I wish at some point we would have gotten this form of Piccolo fighting against a great ape Ozaru form.
Yes.
That would have been
I didn't even think about
awesome.
that would have been so cool.
Yeah. I do really like that they brought this back though for a kaiju battle with Cell Max. That was very, very cool. Yeah, I mean it's cool. It makes Piccolo feel, like you said, like kind of like evil, like the bad guy, but also makes him feel alien. The fact that he can just grow like that. And so I'm kind of middling on this one. Like it's cool. It has elements that I enjoy, and then other elements where I'm like, it's fine.
I think for me, I personally place this one pretty solidly in B tier. I think it's more interesting than just a color swap, but I also can see a lot of universes where we do more interesting stuff with it, but we kind of don't. I'm kind of left wanting to see more. And so you're right. I think it's that character, but bigger. And we can do more with that than just the one time we see it, really. So yeah, I think B tier. I think it's an above average transformation in Dragon Ball. And I think there's a lot left on the table, which is why I don't rank it higher. I think we can do more than what we were given.
I totally agree. B is exactly what I was thinking. I think it's middle of the road, maybe a little above average. I think that brings us to another kind of obscure transformation here with monster form Zarbon.
Yeah, this one, man. This is going to be a tough one for me to judge, because there's a big chunk of nostalgia that's going to kind of be blinding me a little bit, because I loved this transformation as a kid when I saw it. I also love that we have kind of like the Jekyll and Hyde kind of thing going on here, where we've got like the beautiful form, his beautiful regular form, and then he switches into this ugly monster to access like this deeper level of power. And I kind of love that, especially with the way that Zarbon is kind of portrayed, especially if you've seen the Team 4-Star stuff. So it's hard for me to really hate on this form, because visually it is unique. He has like a crocodile face. He bulges out and becomes almost like round from like his muscular form. And I don't know if there's any downside to this other than he just looks ugly. But like he's such a vain character that's a huge downside for him. So like narratively speaking, for that character, that is a big downside.
Yeah, I agree with you. I actually really like this one. I think that this form also, to add to what you said, Dayton, while we had seen transformations, of course, with like the Ozaru form and a few other little things prior to this, I feel like this transformation was priming and prepping us as the audience for what we got with Frieza's transformations.
Yes.
So, I mean, this is just really well done. It's really well placed. I like the downside of just this vain character who doesn't want to look like an ugly monster all the time. I like the kind of narrative element too of saying like, oh, you're gonna be a beast now, like a literal beast in order to access power. Um, and the fact that we as the audience were totally like unaware, caught off guard. Like when Vegeta's fighting Zarbon, Vegeta's got the upper hand. He's like, "Oh, I'm gonna whoop your ass," and then Zarbon's like, "I don't think so," and hulks out on him.
Yeah,
Um,
I think narratively this form is perfect. Visually speaking, I think it's fine. I don't think it's necessarily the most interesting thing to look at, which is probably where I do kind of ding it. Where yeah, he is ugly, but I don't know. We've seen uglier creatures in Dragon Ball before this point, so um, so I guess I can knock it there a little bit because I don't think it's not giving me it's not giving my eyes a lot to feast on. But I don't know what I would change considering I love where it's at on the narrative side. So I don't know. This is kind of a tough one for me to find a home for.
yeah, and I'm looking at this one and I'm like, I think that that's my hang up for this one as well. Like I like that narratively, Zarbon is supposed to be like, you know, an ugly monster or whatever. But just looking at it, like, yeah, they kind of hit the mark, I guess, but it's a little bland. Like I feel bad taking this image and like ranking it high because I'm like, I don't really enjoy it visually.
Yeah, looking at it doesn't really invoke too much. So, but I mean, I think for me, it's got to be just the narrative that carries all the weight because I think as far as transformations go, it's marginally better than a palette swap, which for me, just based on the visuals, would probably put it in like high C tier. But because of all the narrative beats, I think that drags it up to B tier for me.
I agree. I think this is B tier for sure. Um yeah, I mean with the narrative beats, I was even somewhat leaning towards A, but it's a little visually boring. I think that carries it
Yeah,
down.
yeah, and it's we're ranking the transformations, so we gotta weigh what they're transforming into quite a bit here. That can't be discounted. So if the transformation was maybe I don't know, a little dirtier looking, maybe had some more power elements to it or something like if there was some more levers to pull on here, it would probably be an easy A. But unfortunately, what the transformation does is it makes him a little uglier, it makes him stronger. And there's not much else as far as the transformation is concerned.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with you. Speaking of monstrous transformations, we're going to move to another blue green skinned bad guy in Garlic Jr. We just wrote yoked as fuck for.
Now I
I
forget, was he just in the movies or was he in the series at some point?
He's technically in the series, even though it is filler. Between the Frieza arc and the Cell arc, when Goku hasn't returned to Earth, Piccolo, Gohan, and Krillin have to fight Garlic Jr. and the Spice Boys.
Oh my gosh. Okay. All right. So Garlic Jr. and the Spice Boys. Man, this is if you took all the things I liked about Master Roshi's muscle form and got rid of them, this is what you would end up with. I really don't care about this form. It doesn't make any sense to me. And I don't know. I don't really have anything good to say about it other than he's getting yoked.
It's so funny because, and I totally agree with you. Um, I mean, Garlic Jr. is just not an interesting character. There's, I mean, there's maybe something to be said in a positive way for circumventing expectations because Garlic Jr. in his base form basically looks like a toddler. And so then he turns like, he's like 7 feet tall and just stacked with muscle. Um, it's just not, he's just big and green. Like it's not visually interesting. It kind of looks like they're they're stealing like a character design from like the Namekians here. Uh, and it's like you said, Dayton, it just doesn't have any sort of like real narrative weight. There's not really a gag. There's not any sort of like lead up or foreshadowing. Like, and it
It's just
doesn't
kind
do
of ripped
anything
for the
cool.
sake of being ripped. Like there's no, and I also don't know if like does he have to maintain that form? Is there an upside or a downside? He's just ripped for the sake of being ripped. I don't care about this form at all. So I mean, for me, I feel like putting this one in D tier.
I would put it in D as well. It's
I don't have anything good to say about it, and I don't have anything that terrible to say about it, but I just have like nitpick after little nitpick after little nitpick, and eventually at some point you're like, yeah, this isn't even average. This is just nitpicks, and those go in D tier.
Yeah, I feel the same. I think a lot of the trouble with it is Garlic Jr. as a character, and then they just didn't do anything additionally interesting with the transformation.
So now we're moving on to a name that we all know and love, a household name. We're moving on to Frieza. And we had to have a whole conversation about what technically is Frieza's transformations and what is his base form and what do we qualify.
So I actually want to specifically call this out because I even mentioned before we started recording to Dayton, I was like, technically Frieza's first form isn't a transformation. It's his first form. And then Dayton sort of reminded me, he's like, it is technically a transformation. Which is true because Frieza created it to suppress his full power. So we just put all of Frieza's forms in here, basically.
Yeah, it's easier if we just rank them all. And this is this base form of Frieza is actually the form I think of whenever Frieza's name comes up. I don't know if you're the same way, but just Frieza riding around in that goddamn floating mobility scooter is what I think of every time I think of Frieza. So this is where my nostalgia goes 9 out of 10 times when I hear Frieza's name.
I I really like his character design in this form. Like this to me in his tiny little compact package is the perfect representation of space Napoleon Hitler. It's just I love it. I love the colors, the whites and the purples and pinks. I like the horns. It looks very alien. It has like this. It has like the purple lips. Almost looks like he's wearing lipstick, which gives this like. It all just gives you like this unsettling feeling. Even the voice has like this. It's kind of like feminine and menacing, while also being very articulate. I really like this form.
This is probably revealing my hand a little bit too early. This is my favorite form for Frieza. I feel like some of the other forms, I feel like some details are lost. I feel like this one is the most expressive form of Frieza. You get all the little details and minutia. And I don't know. I don't really have that much bad to say about this form because this is where a lot of the plotting was happening. A lot of the, I'm being the evil tyrant and commander was happening. And that's probably one of my favorite parts of Frieza is that Frieza wasn't the person who was going around like fighting everybody. Frieza was leading an empire. And this is the form that the emperor took. And for me, that carries so much more weight than just another punchy form because it's so much more interesting. And I don't know. It's also kind of that the baseline for the whole like big evil villain Namek story arc that we were led off with. So this is kind of like the tip of the iceberg. And I love where that iceberg leads. So I love the front door here.
I agree with everything you said. I think the narrative here carries a lot of weight, but the character design is just fantastic. Like watching scenes on Namek with Frieza, with his two henchmen, Zarbon and Dodoria, and then even minions besides that. And this tiny little form of Frieza that we've heard so much about being the scariest person in the universe is just sitting there, floating in this little bubble chair with his tail hanging out one side. Like, it's so unnerving and menacing. I love this form, man. I might agree with you. This might be the best Frieza form.
Yeah. I don't have any downsides. I love this form. I even like the narrative of why this form exists is that Frieza's just too freaking powerful. And so this is a form that he has to take in order to exist with other mortals. I love that. Everything about this is good. From the top to the bottom, narrative, visually, nostalgia. I mean, all the conversations I remember Frieza having in this form with like the Ginyu Force and him just being enraged about losing the Dragon Balls and storming out. That was the form he was in. Like, I don't really have anything bad to say about this form.
I'll come out and say it. I would straight up put this in Z. I love this one.
I mean, the only thing you can slide it for maybe is that there's not really like a cool fight scene with this form, but
ooh. You know what I will say?
Does it matter?
I will say we do, at the very least. I know that the only movie stuff we've kind of covered is like the canonical movie stuff, but in Resurrection F, while it's not necessarily a cool fight scene, we do get to see this form Frieza hand Gohan his ass.
So, okay. So at least we have an honorable mention fight. I think, I want to put this at the bottom of Z tier. That's kind of where I'm feeling.
I can get on board with that. I think that this deserves to be in Z because neither one of us had anything bad to say. I mean, the only thing you mentioned out of all of that was that we don't really get a fight with him, which, fair. I think that would put it at bottom of Z.
Yeah, I'll put it there. I love this form. Like I said, there could be some nostalgia blinders happening here, but I'll let it. That Dragon Ball's been out for a long time. It's all nostalgia at this point.
Yeah, fair. We're just gonna keep going down the Frieza list for the moment, which is gonna take us to his second form.
Oh God. Yeah, his second form it's a form. He's bigger and stronger. I don't know. This form kind of confuses me, I guess. I don't know how to feel about this, but also Frieza has too many transformations, so this might be just a part of there are too many transformations here. Why this one?
Yeah, I'm torn on this one. Like it has some of the same positive elements from the first form Frieza, but it takes away from it. Like I think first form Frieza, I think the armor is like a really great accessory for the first form. Frieza loses the armor here in the big form. I mean, it's bigger, so it's, you know, it's intimidating in that way, I guess, but there's something about the intimidation factor and the menacingness of that small package of the first form that is really lost in this second form. And maybe this is also partially the narrative too, but like you said, Dayton, I actually really like getting to see Frieza like sitting in his chair just being the emperor versus the only stuff we see with this larger form is fighting.
Yeah, and I mean, we'll get to the third form in a minute, but both the second and third form feel like they're kind of middlemen forms, kind more or less accomplishing the same task. And that's why for me there's a lot of kind of friction between these two forms. And this one, I don't know. I feel like kind of like what you mentioned about the armor. I feel like some features are kind of muted a little bit. And so it's visually less interesting than the first form. And I mean, I don't know. Is there like a ranking where I can just put it's fine? What is the it's fine ranking? Because that's what I'm leaning towards.
I mean, probably like low B, high C would be it's fine, I suppose.
Yeah, because I don't have a lot to say about this form because it's just kind of a Frieza powers up, gets bigger, which I agree with you is kind of a detriment to the kind of imposing nature of this character. It kind of goes in the wrong direction here. I don't necessarily, I don't know. I don't hate this form, but I don't think I like it.
I'm kind of there with you. I think I would probably give it low B, high C. I'm honestly leaning more towards C than B personally.
Sure, it's right in there. I Yeah, I like Zarbon's transformation more than I like this transformation. So I think high C is probably a good place to put this.
Let's throw it in high C then, somewhere in there.
Yeah, it's very fine. It doesn't really break anything, but it doesn't add a whole bunch. And I mean, part of the meme with Frieza is that there's always another transformation, and this is just another one of those transformations for me.
Yeah. And another one.
Oh gosh. So this is Frieza's third form, and it all comes down to do you like the Aliens movies?
I'll be honest, I actually do like I at least like the visual of this one, and it is totally ripped from. It's a xenomorph. It is a fucking pink and white xenomorph.
Yeah, it's kind of jarring how spot on it is though, where it's not just borrowing from the universe, it's definitely you're not looking at anything else. The really elongated head like that and kind of the hunched over posture, you can't mistake it for anything else. So if you want something to look kind of alien, I guess just make it look like an alien.
Yeah. There is I think this kind of ties into the next form, but there's something neat for this form for me where you have the small package like first form Frieza that gets to like the big hulking form of Frieza. So you're like, okay, he's bigger, he's stronger, he's more intimidating, whatever. And then he gets arguably like bigger and more monstrous. And what I like about this is that you're kind of like, when it's revealed that Frieza has one more transformation, you're kind of like, oh, how can he get like more scarier, more crazy, more wild, more intimidating? And that's all of that kind of interpretation is because of the lead up from form 1 to form 2 to this form. So I like that part about it.
That's you know what, that's absolutely fair. I think you're right about that. And I think that was intentional just to kind of set the expectation like that. So I guess for the purposes of that build up that they were trying to put into the show, I do like that. This transformation, man, I love the movie Aliens. This feels a little bit too on the nose for me, where I can't see anything else. I'm wondering if maybe because we're a Western audience and this is much more in the limelight for us. Maybe it is that obvious, where maybe in Japan the Aliens movies weren't as seen, so maybe this isn't as in your face. But yeah, I'm really torn on this one because I like that Frieza got bigger and more monstrous, but it's very specifically a monstrous that I'm very familiar with, and that's all I see every time I look at him. As far as the pros and cons of the transformation, like I don't know what the ups and downs of this form are. They just seem like another monster form.
Yeah, Frieza's stronger. Admittedly, we don't spend a ton of time with this form either, right? Like they toss it away very, very quickly. I mean, using like the death beams to like beat up Piccolo is cool, but it's not really unique to this form. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I get your point. There is a part of me though that I think, whereas for you, this looking like a xenomorph is a downside. For me, one, I like the xenomorph design, so I'm like, oh, this looks really cool. And two, it is so close to that design that it is almost comical to me. And so I kind of enjoy it for that reason. Like, wow, you didn't even try to hide that, ripping that design off.
Yeah, for me, when I'm looking at it, I'm like, I think it's a little bit more visually interesting than Zarbon's transformation.
Oh, for sure.
But it fails in the narrative importance for me. Like, it's part of that buildup, but like that form doesn't carry the same water that Zarbon's transformation carries for him. So that once again, I'm in that like CB area with this transformation, but that's because I think, like you're saying, transformation 2 and 3 are both build up transformations. I don't think they're supposed to be the main dish or necessarily that exciting.
Yeah, I'm kind of in that ballpark with you. I could go either B or C for this. I think it deserves to be higher than second form Frieza and lower than Zarbon. So either high C or low B,
Yeah,
if you want to.
we can put this after Zarbon because as far as a
Okay.
lot of transformations in Dragon Ball go, this is at least trying to be different, and I think it can get some extra credit for that.
That's one of the reasons why I would probably put this in B, is because it's at least, even if it is a rip-off design, it's at least visually interesting, which is not always the case.
No, I'm fine. Bottom of B sounds perfectly good to me. And now we move into Frieza's final 100% form, or as I like to call it, the iPhone version.
And as Dayton kind of read off here, we're lumping in Frieza's final form as well as full power 100% Frieza. It's just Frieza but bulkier, so it's the same thing.
And man, this one's a tough one for me because I like that Frieza went back down to a compact form, that Space Napoleon kind of small package, big punch sort of look. I think the reveal is very menacing. I do like the reveal of it as well. I think it's less interesting looking than Frieza's first form, but it's not bad looking. There's good narrative weight behind this form. It's definitely different than the other forms that we've seen from Frieza, so it's kind of in its own package. Um, I like this form. I don't think it's Frieza's best form, but I think I like it more than Frieza's other two forms. But I also have so many fond memories associated with Goku fighting Frieza in that form. So that's where I'm trying to make sure I'm not being too blinded at this point.
I know what you mean, and we spend a lot of time with Frieza in this form, in Z and in Super and otherwise. So it definitely is not as good as Frieza's first form, in my opinion. Visually, for me, I'm honestly torn if this is visually better or worse than Frieza's third form, than the alien xenomorph form. I do like the circumventing expectations of like the build up to like this crazy wild monster and then going the complete other direction and being like, oh no, he's small, he's sleek. I like that a lot. I also like that this is Frieza's, if you want to call it like his natural form. Kind of what we talked about, where Frieza created the other forms to suppress his power. Uh, it's interesting to think about if Frieza like specifically designed those other forms, if he was able to do that or not. But I don't know. I like his tail. I like he's got like he only has like 4 fingers and 3 toes. Um, it's simple. It's not like, it's certainly not offensive. It's just not phenomenal either.
That's where I was kind of getting at is I like it, but I don't love it. And I'm also trying not to let the fact that we spend so much time with that form kind of weigh down its importance. Because we spend a lot of time with that form, and a lot of it is punchy time too.
Right.
Man,
It's
this
a
is a
tough
tough
one.
one. For
Yeah.
me, I think I put this one high B. It's better than a palette swap for sure.
Yeah.
Um, it does change the look of Frieza, so but what else is it doing? I don't know. It's in B somewhere for me. Um, I'm not sure who it goes in front of or behind of, but I think it's a B tier transformation.
Yeah, I would agree. This B tier maybe would needs some reordering, but we'll throw it in here somewhere. I
Sure.
think it. I'm gonna throw it right there. So it's above third form Frieza and just above Zarbon. Although I don't know if Big Piccolo should. Well, no, Big Piccolo has cool stuff for the fighting and stuff, so
His
he deserves
transformation
to be up
actually
there.
changes the dynamic of a fight, so that it gets interesting points and the purpose of the transformation actually doing stuff. Whereas Frieza
Yeah,
just gets more powerful. It doesn't actually change much else.
yeah, that's true. I have to remind myself about that part because Big Piccolo is not visually interesting to me at all.
Well, speaking of not visually interesting to me at all, we're going to talk about Golden Frieza, which for me is just a color. It's just a palette swap. I don't have any feelings towards this one. I think it is very bland. Actually, it's kind of annoying to me that they also went with gold in this one, like the Super Saiyans. And I don't even think I really like the narrative that much of Frieza never trained before in his life and trained for like a month or whatever and then got his supers. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of this one. It's kind of silly to me.
I mostly agree with you. I don't like that it's a palette swap, and admittedly, I think it's a much worse palette than Final Form Frieza or base White Frieza.
Hmm.
I don't like his purple face looks goofy with his purple head and stuff. Um, the one thing I like about it, though, which I think is contrary to what you were saying, Dayton, is that I like that Frieza chose gold because there's this element, at least for me, my headcanon is that Frieza was doing it to be like, oh, what defeated me was this Super Saiyan with this golden hair. So okay, fine. You want to go gold? I'll go all gold. So there's like this element of like pettiness in my mind of him choosing the gold because I think he even specifically says that he chose gold. And then in addition to that, Goku by that point has gone into, even though we don't like this transformation, has gone from the golden Super Saiyan form to Super Saiyan blue. So it kind of narratively and visually indicates that Frieza's still a step behind, which I really like that part about it. But everything else that you said, I I don't like this form. It's not visually interesting. It looks worse than White Frieza. It's it doesn't do anything fun. It's a worse color palette.
Yeah, it doesn't really break too much for me. I don't know. I don't even really like the story that much personally. For me, I have to put this one in D tier. I don't really have much good to say about this one. If you can think of a reason to knock it up, go for it. But I don't really have much good to say about this. There's so much fun stuff they could have done, and this felt like such a just hand wave shoe in. We've got to give Frieza the power up, and we already have the gold marker out. So here we go.
That's fair. I was leaning C or D, mostly just because of the narrative points that I was talking about. So I'm going to put it in high D if that's okay.
Sure, yeah, that works for me. Um, I agree with that because at least narratively speaking, if depending on how much you wave that, Gohan's Super Saiyan 2 transformation has more components to it than Frieza's golden transformation. So I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's fair.
I'm not a big
And
fan of it. I mean, we'll go high D because I probably would have put it lower than that. So yeah, we'll compromise.
that's fair. I think that's the compromise. I think even admittedly, even the narrative beats that I'm expressing are beats that you really have to read into. They're not actually given to the audience. So
Well, we've got another big baddie on the menu as we jump into Cell and we take a look at his imperfect form, which is not technically his base form because he's like a larva or something before that. So yeah, we can talk about this one.
it's this was also in the discussion about is this a transformation between Dayton and I. It's so weird because yeah, he's technically goes into his larva form. Whatever. We're talking about this one because, admittedly, I'm revealing my hand here. This is the coolest Cell form, hands down. this, like, him being his reveal, we've talked about it when we've, like, in our review of Kai and everything, his reveal is super creepy. You've got like the weird noise when he walks, his voice is kind of like raspy and just weird and breathy. He's got like the fucking beak mouth. He's got the tail and the wings. He's got like a armored carapace with like the greens and oranges and the spots. He looks very insectoid, and then you find that he can fucking drink people with his tail. I love this form. This is a super cool form.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And his form is purpose built, right? Like he's got the long tail because he's supposed to be using it to kind of suck people dry. And he's he's going through like the chrysalis transformation to get into this form, kind of like a bug would. And so he looks like a bug. And as he's absorbing people or the androids, I guess, he starts becoming more and more like them. So the fact that this is the first step in his process and he looks like he's at his first step in his process looks cool. I also like that when everyone else is playing like save the world, fight people game, he's playing the I'm a horror movie in the background doing horror movie things. And I love that. I love that just everything in this form is so different from other things we see in Dragon Ball. It makes it a much more interesting watch. And so not only is the form purpose built, which is cool, but what he does in that form and the narrative that that form gives us is also different than a lot of Dragon Ball. I really don't have a ton of negative to say about this, especially because when we're first introduced to him, we're not even really aware that he's the main villain.
Yeah, that's a good point. He's even like, I mean, there are other problems going on with the androids, so you're just kind of like, who the hell is this guy? What is going on with him? So there's this whole mystery behind him too, which is super interesting. I'm honestly trying to think of something bad, and I'm totally drawing a blank. So I would struggle to put this anywhere other than Z, maybe A, if you can think of anything negative.
That's what I'm kind of the same conclusion I'm coming to, where like just imperfect form Cell go into Z tier. I mean, he's even had some decent fights with them. He had a cool moment with Piccolo where like he sucks his arm dry and Piccolo has to rip it off, and he reveals that he was actually just getting information out of him. I don't actually have a ton negative to say about this. And mind you, we're rating the transformation. And as far as a transformation goes, I think this one fits form perfectly. I think they nailed it with this transformation. I think it should go into Z tier.
Yeah, I'm putting it in Z. I got nothing bad to say about it. It's phenomenal. I think that takes us to second form Cell, which is less phenomenal.
Oh gosh. All right, let me give my opinion and then I'm going to go grab a heat tab. So this form, man, this form is, you went from a very visually interesting creature and transformation, and then you move over to this, and I gotta say, this is probably the goofiest looking form out of Cell's transformations. I don't really get. Does he have a nose? I don't think he has a nose. I'm gonna double check this.
No, there is no nose on him. Just big old fish lips.
Yeah, like he's got the big fish lips. He's got no nose. I mean, he's like weirdly jacked. I think he looks more jacked in this form than he does in his perfect form, which is kind of weird. So
True.
we kind of like over jump. We go from like this slender, weird looking alien thing to just like this fish lip jacked dude with a tail. I mean, I wish they would have kept a little bit more of the alien elements, a little bit more of the bug like stuff with him. Because I feel like we lost almost all of that with this first jump. And if anything, we went to a human with just less features. And so I don't think I'm a big fan of this form. I don't think I like this form very much.
I'm mostly on board with you. The only thing that I will say, like I agree that it's a bummer that we really on this one jump miss out on most of the bug features. The only thing is that this needs to be a transition into the perfect form, right? Like I like the idea that Cell, as he becomes closer to perfection, he's becoming less of like this insect and more human, more perfect, more like the elements that he's made out of, which are basically Saiyans and humans. Well, I guess you got Frieza in there and King Cold in there as well, but
There's some weird like alien juice in there. Well, it's also weird because does he lose his wings in this form, then get him back in his third form?
I think you're right. Yeah, actually.
Like it's
Which,
just this form just confuses me.
yeah, no, that was the only point I wanted to bring up. I pretty much wholeheartedly otherwise agree with you, Dayton, that this form is just, even the voice sounds goofy. Like, I just don't like it at all.
Yeah, I mean, my thing is I at least see what they were trying to do. I think they kind of
Right.
missed the mark a little bit. So I can at least appreciate the direction they were trying to go. I think they could have done it better. I think if they would have left some more of those bug like elements in here, I think would have come off a lot better. But right now it's really awkward. Uh, I don't know whether I ding it all the way down to D tier or not because of it. I'm somewhere in that C to D tier kind of area where I don't know if it suffers enough for me to be like, I actively dislike this D tier, or if it's just like, it didn't quite hit right, C tier because you missed your mark.
I'm right there with you. I'm leaning bottom of C, partly because a lot of the ones that we have in D are, most of them are palette swaps, honestly,
Yeah.
which this is better than that at least.
I think you're right. I think we have to give credit where credit's due. They at least tried something with this. I think it failed, but you give them some credit for the effort. I think this is a C tier transformation.
Yeah, we'll put it at bottom of C. I think that's probably the fairest place to put that. I think you and I were pretty close on the same line of thought there.
I think on that note, why don't you go ahead and introduce the next one while I refill my beverage over here?
Get you some heat tap. The next one is going to be, I think, some people's favorite in Perfect Cell. Now, I like this one. I like this one a lot. I don't think that I like this one as much as I like Imperfect Cell, but it's hard not to appreciate the charm and the confidence of this form. I mean, again, like we talked about, this does kind of complete that transition from. Listen to that heat tap. This completes the transition from like imperfect bug monster to perfected kind of like humanoid powerhouse. I mean, I like the design. It looks much better than the second form. I kind of like the colored lines on the face. The proportions look much better than the second form. He looks like big and strong, which I think feels right for this form. But he doesn't look too bulky and goofy like the second form.
I also
And
feel like with this form, you can see some of the more elements of like Frieza in this form, and I think it's a good look on this final boss.
I think part of that, like, I mean, I was talking about the lines on his face. You do see part of that. Yeah, I totally agree too. Like the shiny, like round dome on the top. I like that we get the wings back. I think the wings look fantastic. I also really like now that this is his perfect form, the tail has retracted kind of like up into his back covered by his wings, giving just visually indicating that he doesn't have a need for it anymore, which I really enjoy.
Yeah, I like that there are narrative elements to the actual his physical look. And I mean this one it almost looks like he's got some of those in Frieza's first form, how he has like the armor elements. It almost looks like he has some of that too with like the thigh guards and the way like his legs look like they're almost like Mega Man boots he has on him. Less overemphasized like his previous form, more fitting in this form. But
Yeah.
he looks like he's ready to fight. He looks like a combatant in this one, whereas the previous one he just looked like, I don't know, like a bruiser. And then the one before that he looked like a bug. So there is that kind of build up to being a fighter. And that's what we're seeing here. Like you said about the wings, I love that the wings are back. They should have never have left. And I think if his personality was any different than what they had given to him, I don't think I would like this form. But his personality fits it so well that I do appreciate it. So I think it was a risk to make him look like this and to choose that kind of personality. But man, they got it to gel just right, and I love it.
I totally agree with you there. I also, I on a couple of these, I think we kind of forgot to talk about, just as a touch point for like the Frieza third and final form. We didn't talk much about the actual moment of the transformation. I just want to mention that I do also like when Frieza transforms from third form to final form, the like shattering of the shell that comes off of him. But to come back to the cell form, the transformation moment when he absorbs Android 18 feels it feels dramatic. He's like covered in like this white light and everything. It's just like billowing energy out from him. And I think kind of similar to that Frieza transformation. I think his body like cracks and sheds almost when he does it. So it's I mean it's up there in terms of like even just the actual transformation moment too. So I mean it's I don't think it I think Imperfect Cell is better. But I think this one gets pretty high marks.
Yeah, this one doesn't give me the same kind of eerie feeling that Imperfect Cell gave me. It doesn't have the same, I guess, narrative impact that Imperfect Cell has. And what I mean by that is just the way the story has to be told because of what Imperfect Cell is. And I I like this form a lot. I have a lot of good things to say about this form. I don't, as much as Cell would like me to say, I don't think it's perfect, but there are a lot of good things here, and I think there's definitely more done right than wrong. Um, I like this form a lot, and like you said, I like the way that the tail's kind of sucked back up inside because it's now he doesn't need it anymore, and so for me, this one is in the high B, low A range is where I'm looking.
I would agree. I think this deserves to be above Super Saiyan 3. Does it deserve to be up there
Ooh,
in
I don't know
A?
if it's A tier though. I think it's
I don't
high B. It
I
really
would
feels
agree.
high B to me because I'm like, muscle form Roshi is just cool as hell. Perfect Cell's not on the same level, and then
I
Super
and
Saiyan 4 is very, very unique.
I was kind of comparing it to Super Saiyan 4, and I don't think it deserves to be on that same level either.
Yeah, I think it's a
Um
strong B, and I think Cell should be happy with a strong B.
That's right. As you said, sorry, Cell, but your final form
Oh
is
man.
not perfect.
Well, we got I don't know how I'm gonna rate these ones, but we got Boo up next, and we're gonna go with his first original. Well, I don't know, technically first from what we've seen, but not his first canonically speaking. We're gonna go
Yeah.
with Fat Boo, Majin Buu, uh, and this is, I mean, this is a weird one for me to rate because it's the first thing you see when you see Boo. And so you kind of have that nostalgia of like, oh my God, that's the monster. And then you kind of get it flipped on its head when the monster's like this child, basically, and kind of this brat, and also the threat to the universe. So there's kind of this gag when you're first meeting Boo, but also he's this big, terrifying monster thing. But also, I don't think I really care much for his design because he's a big, round, pink piece of bubble gum with a vest.
Yeah, I'm I'm right there with you. I'm torn on this one. Like I think when we talked about fights, like or techniques maybe, this his form, just Boo's form in general, makes for like interesting fights, interesting techniques in combat. And it looks fine. I do like that it is kind of trying to circumvent expectations as Toriyama loves to do. That this is like it looks like a big baby.
Mhm.
And this is, as you said, Dayton, the big bad guy, and you're like, it's kind of disarming. And then you see that Majin Buu is very terrifying in his actions. Um, I don't know. Like I know that the design as far as the vest and the cape and the pants and stuff is supposed to be because one of the Kais got absorbed by him. So I guess I kind of like that part.
It's
But
also
yeah,
weird
it's
because like Boo's transformations are probably they're more focused on the personality rather than necessarily the power jump in a lot of
right.
these cases. And mind you, there are power jumps and power swings and differences, but it mostly boils down to the personality piloting the body. And as we go through these, a lot of them are going to share a lot of similar looks visually. It might be, how in shape they are, but they're all going to be wearing like the same white looking pants. This one happens to have the vest and cape. Um, I don't think these are going to rank very far apart from each other.
Yeah, probably
So,
not.
um, but as far as the original Boo goes, I guess he's at least wearing gloves and has a cape. He's got a couple things going on for him. So, uh, I guess I could put him high C, maybe
I'm
mid
lean.
C.
Yeah, I'm leaning in that direction too. Definitely better than second form Frieza in my opinion. Uh, ooh, I I would almost put that form above the legend.
See,
Maybe
that's kind of where
behind.
I'm at, where I'm kind of splitting hairs at this point of just like, do I like the legendary Super Saiyan stuff more than the Majin Buu trans or that form or whatever that is? And gosh, this was an entire discussion of does that go in the fusion category or not because he's technically in a different form based off of who he's
Ugh.
absorbed. Like the whole Buu thing's complicated.
Yeah, as far as Boo's forms being transformations, we kind of went with like the three core forms because it's a mess.
Yeah,
Um,
I think
but
at
I
least with this one, I give it high C just because it's at least visually distinct. Um,
right.
but yeah, it mostly comes down to personality, and there's at least a gag there with his personality of you expect the destroyer of the universe to not be this big overweight child.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think that that's an appropriate spot, which I think will carry us to the next one, which we'll see where this one goes. If we go to Super Boo.
Yeah, Super Boo, and um, the a lot of things I said about Majin Buu are going to kind of carry over here, except we don't
Yeah.
have the cape or gloves or vest. We just have pants. We do have a character who has a much more menacing personality. His eyes are blacked out, so he's kind of creepy looking. Other than that, it feels kind of samey to me.
Yeah, I honestly think that I like this one less. Um, Kind of like you said, he doesn't have any like of the accessories like the cape and the vest and stuff. It's not like I don't necessarily hate it.
Hmm.
Um, but when you kind of compare it to like the other form and then he's
Yeah,
just like a big muscular guy too. It's like, okay.
it's funny because we have another villain who has a muscular guy form who I would put right next to, which is Cell's second form. I put him right in the same ballpark as Cell's second form, whether you like it more or less. It's up to you, but that's where I would personally put it. I don't. There's not a ton for me to say about this transformation other than it's Boo got into shape and has blacked out eyes and is more evil. And I'm not. I can only weigh the narrative of this transformation so much because the actual transformation itself doesn't really do a whole lot for me.
I'm right there with you. Yeah, pretty low on C tier. Ooh, we'll throw him at the end there. I'll bump him above second form cell because second form
Sure.
cell had a lot of misses going on there.
All right. And then this one will be a little bit interesting because I want to know what your take on this one's going to be. The final Boo form that we're ranking is the Kid Boo form, which is the final form that Goku battles to death.
This one is a funny one, and I'm gonna sound maybe like I'm shifting, or it's a weird deviation because this is my favorite form of Boo. I like this one better than Super Boo and better than Fat Boo, despite the fact that it's basically just a smaller version of Super Boo. There's no other accessories. He just kind of has like the armbands and the white pants and stuff. But there's something, maybe it's just, I mean, this maybe ties into like the first form Frieza and why I like that one so much. There's something that is just more interesting and menacing about this, like, this childlike form, even his voice, and he's just like, he's just more chaotic. He feels more evil to me in this like smaller, more compact form. I just like it better. It's harder. It's hard to really put this one into words for me, but that's about the best that I can do with it.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think as far as a villainous personality goes, this one feels like a villain. This one feels like the bad guy. And being in that kind of childish form, like this evil child. I mean, there's a reason why there are so many movies where they've got spooky kids walking around in them when they're trying to freak people out. It works. It's off-putting. And so I think his demeanor in that diminutive form works really well. I do knock it though, because as far as transformation goes, it's just Boo, but in a child form. And there's not a ton different than that. I mean, it works. It fills the niche it needs to fill. But as far as just from the transformation perspective, this one doesn't do a lot for me. But I think narratively speaking, this one carries more weight than the other ones. So I can agree with you that I think this one's better than the other ones. It's just, I don't think it's a ton better than the other ones.
Yeah, I wouldn't argue with that, to be honest. I'm trying to decide as I'm looking at this. I think it deserves to be above Majin Buu personally. I could even see arguments for it being below, but that would definitely put it in either C, high C, maybe low B. What are your thoughts?
I was thinking the absolute tail ass end of B.
Okay. I could definitely get on board with that.
Because it is more interesting than the color swaps. And I do think that child form does add to the situation, the narrative. It is adding something, so I think that needs to be kind of mentioned or at least recognized. But I'm not going to give it much more than that personally.
Yeah, I can get on board with that. Yeah, putting it just underneath third form Frieza. And that brings us to one that is a weird one. We considered not putting this in here, but I think people might have set our podcast on fire if we didn't talk about this one.
Yeah, I don't know what technically qualifies as a transformation. You could argue that this one does or doesn't, but it's worth recognizing because I do think that there are new elements added to it. We're going to be talking about Vegeta and his Majin Vegeta transformation, which you could argue is just him being under the influence of a spell. I don't know if he's actually transformed or different, but I mean, he gets a power boost. He acts different. His personality's warped, or at least set free or unleashed by this spell that Babidi put on him. So I think there's enough differences in here where even if you don't think it's a transformation, it's at least worth talking about the change he went through.
Yeah, this is a tricky one. I mean, when in our coverage of Kai, I've gushed about this, at least the narrative moments attached to this one endlessly. So I'm going to try not to talk about that too much. Obviously, it's interesting that, you kind of see Vegeta, who was kind of becoming a good guy, really going back to his bad guy roots here and just murdering people by the hundreds. I mean, it's tied to his ego, his pride. It's he let himself get taken over or get transformed in this way. Uh, Visually, not interesting. It is he gets an M on his head, and maybe you could argue that he's got the lightning, but that could even be just
And
Super
maybe
Saiyan
some guy
2.
liner.
That's true. He's got some guy liner. You're right. So yeah, visually nothing interesting. The transformation doesn't. The transformation has a lot of narrative weight. Other than that, it doesn't have any of the other positive points, I would say.
Yeah, I think it's the narrative way. It's kind of the his soul kind of being unburdened through this transformation. That's the big selling point here. So as far as the transformation itself, I mean, he gets an M on his head. He's Sparky. Gets some guy liner. But other than that, you could argue that that's mostly a palette swap. Uh, I don't know where else to put this other than in the palette swap category that we put all the other palette swaps in, but it's worth mentioning at least that I like the narrative arc that's happening while he's in this form.
That's the tricky part. Yeah, as somebody who deeply loves Vegeta and deeply loves Majin Vegeta, I feel terrible putting this in that same category. But it's just not an interesting transformation. There's lots of narrative elements tied to it that are really good, but I don't think the transformation is the important part about those narrative elements. Much like Super Saiyan 2, honestly.
Yeah, it served the purpose it needed to serve, and it didn't need to be anything else. So I can respect what they did with it. But as far as it being a transformation and standing on its own 2 feet, it doesn't really offer a ton. So, man, I was in the ballpark of it's high D, low C, somewhere in there.
That's where I'm at.
I think low C, and I say that because it at least adds something narratively, even if it isn't very visually interesting. And it also doesn't really subtract from the universe. And I typically reserve D tier for things that subtract from the universe.
I gotta go with you there too. I will put it at the bottom of C, but I just can't. It has too much good narrative elements going for it, and it's not as bad as all the other ones we have in D for sure.
So that's Majin Vegeta. Now we're moving into, man, this is another interesting one. We're moving on to Gohan, and we're going to be talking about the Mystic slash Ultimate form. And these are weird ones because they're not identified super well in the series, and depending on what you read on the wiki, there could be different stages of these forms as well. It's interesting. So I think we just lumped it all together and said his Mystic slash Ultimate form.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. They're all basically the same. They look the same. Speaking of looking the same, this basically just looks like base form Gohan. I mean, some people could argue, oh, he's got a bang in front. And even sometimes he's not drawn with the bang in front, and they say that he's in his ultimate form, so whatever.
This feels like a really underserved transformation. Something that should be cool every time it comes up, and it never is.
I totally agree. And we talked about this in Kai, but he shows up, he's really cool for a second, and then he gets the shit kicked out of him. It's just it's visually boring. It's never really very effective. I like that he's going down a different path than just, oh, you're a Saiyan, here's your Super Saiyan transformation packet. I think that you had some really interesting points to make about it as far as like Gohan going down like the route of learning from divinity and stuff, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, he doesn't have the same kind of violent nature that the other Saiyans have, and so him kind of learning from the more protecting side of the divine beings, like the Kais, really kind of fits with his personality, and so him learning skills and abilities to protect people versus fighting people makes a lot of sense for him as a character. And I would like to see that actually blossom into a full story arc. But what we get is we kind of get him spinning his wheels with these, I don't know, getting his, potential unlocked, and then training with the Kais, and then in the Tournament of Power, I don't know what the heck he did. I already forgot. But he just kind of doesn't ever really seem to go anywhere with it. We're kind of spinning our wheels. I guess with the Dragon Ball superhero movie, they take that to the next level, but I still don't really know where that's going still. So it's hard for me to really comment on what the narrative impact of this form is, because we haven't really seen any. And as far as visually, we haven't really seen anything other than just even more bland palette swap. Just like a generic Kai energy, or sometimes nothing. So this is probably one of the worst looking transformations in Dragon Ball.
Yeah, hands down. There's something, I guess, to be said. I think the Elder Kai who releases his potential with this form says something along the lines of like, oh, those Super Saiyan transformations are like just a waste of energy or whatever. And basically says like, oh, you don't need those. You have all that energy. You have all the power that you need inside of you. So there's something to be said for a narrative beat for Gohan and his character in that way. But it just doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah, it's, don't tell me it, show me it sort of thing. And we haven't really been shown it. Also, Toriyama came out and said that there's midichlorians, so it's, it might not be inside everybody, but you specifically, you've got midichlorians, so don't worry about it.
Got them S cells, baby.
So for me, I think this actually falls below C tier because I think there's some narrative drops with it. I think this is a top of D tier ruling for me because it is the least visually interesting transformation.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Yeah, I'm gonna put it at the top of D because they that is the frustrating part about it, is that it's like you tried to do interesting narrative stuff with it, but you failed and kind of dropped the ball.
Yeah, it's like, all right, well, now we have all these questions that we're probably not going to get answers to. And, oh, well. All right. Sorry, Gohan. Like, I feel bad putting you down here, but they did you dirty.
Yeah, I love Gohan, and yeah, he is regularly done dirty, unfortunately.
Well, speaking of characters who are frequently done dirty, Piccolo's up next with another transformation. And in this one, he's going orange.
Yeah. I'm so torn on this one too, and I've said that about a handful of these, but I like that Piccolo gets a different look. I'm not really sure that I'm a huge fan of the look. He's got like this big jaw, his antennae are like two erect penises on his head. It's fine. His skin is orange. It's kind of weird, like the way that his arms have like a different tone of orange than his body. I like that Piccolo got a transformation. Let's say that. Let's get that out of the way because he fucking deserves it. But even then, he gets a transformation in this movie, and it's overshadowed by somebody else's transformation in this movie.
Yeah, and I forget, we weren't rating the transformations in movies, but I think this one, there's a reason why we tied this one in. I don't remember exactly what it is.
I'll say this because I realized that too. We should have said we're not rating the transformations in non-canonical movies.
Okay, that's what we meant. Well, it's a good thing we clarified that 2 hours and 13 minutes in.
Let's put it that way, because basically any of the other movies, except for the ones that were made like post Z into Super, those ones are all canon. I mean, they follow the manga, all that stuff. So this movie, Superhero, got remade in the manga, so it is canon.
Oh, okay, yeah. So Piccolo Orange or Orange Piccolo. This one's weird because when I look at his face, I get the same kind of vibe I get when I look at Super Saiyan 3 face, where it just feels like some features are slightly like weird and different, and I can't really put my fingers on it. Like
Uh-huh.
why does this just look weird? Um it for the most part feels like a palette change again, which is really disappointing, but hey, I guess everybody needs to get one. The only thing positive I can really say about this is that hopefully this, magic wand brings Piccolo up to speed with everyone else where he's at least relevant again. So it might be a necessary transformation because how else would he become relevant?
I do like that part. It's slightly diminished, like I said, by the fact that his transformation is overshadowed in power by somebody else getting a transformation in the very same movie within like 30 minutes of each other. Um I do like though let's say this. I don't like the way he gets the transformation. He wishes on the Dragon Balls for the transformation. So it doesn't feel earned. I do like out of anybody to get a transformation from the Dragon Balls, I like that it is Piccolo because Piccolo has Kami as part of his being. Kami was the one who made the Dragon Balls, made Shenron, and Shenron specifically was like, "Bro, I got you. Here's an extra bit of juice for your power up." I also really like the visual cue of Piccolo getting like the tree, the Namekian, I forget the name of it, but the Namekian tree on his gi when he gets the power up and when he transforms. Really cool narrative, like lore tie-in there.
Yeah,
But it's
they're I agree with you. I like the symbolism. I mean, it's fun, and you're right. If there was anybody who would bro up with the dragon and get a hand me out, it would definitely be Piccolo. And it's not. This isn't the worst transformation. And you're right. There are some things I like. I don't love this transformation. I don't hate it. This feels like a very middling transformation. And like you said, especially because it's overshadowed almost immediately afterwards. It would have been awesome to really get like a big win with the green guy or orange guy and have something to really like think back and remember and associate it with something cool, but we don't really get that.
not really. I mean, the coolest thing you get is the kaiju battle, and that's not really like that's really his big form rather than the orange form that makes that accessible. But it's, yeah, I don't know. I was a little bit disappointed with this one. I like that it is at least a little bit visually different, even though it is basically a palette swap. But
This feels very middle of the road to me. If I had to place it somewhere, I'd probably put it honestly like smack dab in the middle of C tier. This feels like a very average transformation. I don't hate it. I don't love it. Maybe we'll see something cool in the future with it, but we haven't been given much as of 2024. So I've got to put it like in the middle of C tier somewhere.
same, yeah, it's somewhere in the middle here. I think I'm gonna put it above Super Saiyan 2. I think Super Saiyan God had more stuff going for it than this one, honestly.
Sure. I was either saying it was around Super Saiyan God. It feels kind of samey.
I agree. Yeah, for sure. I think just checking on our list, we might have jumped. We missed our God of Destruction guy?
Oh yeah, we did miss our God of Destruction. Yeah, we got to talk about Top or Topo in the Tournament of Power because we saw him transform into a God of Destruction mid tournament. And I think for me, this is a palette swap, but it's a very well done palette swap because I feel like this is very distinctly God of Destruction. And as I Googled earlier, he had the symbols of his mentor actually like glowing on his chest, which is kind of a cool distinction. So God Energy has a cool color palette to it, even though it was cool for about 5 seconds. And then, it went from destroying anything it touched to not really destroying anything it touched. So I'm not sure what's going on there. Um, I don't know. I liked the reveal of Top being trained to be a god of destruction, but that might be standing out because there were so many bad beats surrounding this one. It might push this one up a little higher than maybe it deserves to be.
Yeah, I I'm not a huge fan of this one. I almost forgot about this one until you reminded me about it. It's I mean, he does change his form a little bit. He's kind of like this, I don't know, like this round, rotund fellow, and then gets like muscular when he goes into his God form. I He gets the aura. It just doesn't feel like it does a whole lot. Like you kind of get the destruction powers, but the destruction powers unfortunately destroy when the narrative elements want them to, and don't destroy whenever they say they don't. It just feels inconsistent.
That's the part that bothers me the most is if the destruction stuff would actually just destroy, then I would like this a lot more than what it turned out to be.
Yeah, and it just feels like a guy getting muscular and getting an aura to me. Like, it's fine. I don't know. I don't have a lot.
I want Hakai to be cool, okay? That's all I'm wishing for is I have this feeling that like God of Destruction energy should just destroy, just erase from existence whatever it touches. I wish it would because that would have made this a really interesting situation. But man, Super really dropped the ball on this because this could have been so much fun. And I think for me, it's a big missed opportunity to actually have something cool happen. And I am giving it some credit because narratively, you built everything up for something cool to happen and then you flubbed it. And so you should get some points for building up the narrative, but also I do have to knock you for flubbing it. So kind of cancels each other out, right?
Yeah, and it's not super visually interesting. It gives me similar vibes to like Ultimate Gohan or like Second Form Cell, where it's like you had a decent idea, but you missed the mark.
Okay. Yeah, I was putting it in like the Super Saiyan God and Orange Piccolo area where it's, I can very much tell that the color palette was swapped. I can tell you're something different, but it doesn't mean a whole lot.
Yeah, I could see putting it up in that range somewhere. I would still put it underneath Orange Piccolo.
Sure.
But yeah, it's a palette swap with like slight body change and some missed story opportunities.
All they had to do was have Hakai actually disintegrate things, and I think it's a great reveal.
I agree. I would be down for that.
But it doesn't, so that's why it's down in C tier.
Yeah, 100%. I think we how did we miss? I think we also missed our golden monkey somewhere along the lines here.
I'm not sure. I do know that we've got a few left and then some honorable mentions here at the 2 hour and 23-minute mark.
Yeah, I know. We'll wrap it up here pretty quick. The golden monkey I know is probably one that you don't know a ton about, Dayton. We'll just get that one out of the way real quick. It's fine. It's an Ozaru palette swap. It's weird the way that it happens because Goku's staring at the Earth, or yeah, that's strange. Lore wise, it doesn't really make much sense to me. Like, why did the Earth make him transform in that way? It has the positives of the original Ozaru, but I mean, you kind of give those positives to the Ozaru, not the golden Ozaru. This is just a different form of it, and it's just a different color. It's honestly just bland to me in that way. Like it's just a transitional period or transitional transformation from Ozaru into Super Saiyan 4. Uh, Otherwise, it's just another Ozaru. So, I mean,
So it sounds like just a color swap for the sake of getting us to the next one.
yeah, 100%. So I wouldn't really rank it very high, honestly. Just a palette swap.
All right. Yeah, that sounds like somewhere C tier-ish to me.
Yeah, probably. I would probably put it like way at the bottom of C.
Sure.
Because it got to give it a little bit of props for being Ozaru, but otherwise it's literally just a palette swap.
You are in C tier because you're riding on the coattails of regular Zaru. Understand that.
100%. Absolutely.
All right. Golden Monkeys knocked out of the way.
Which I think our next one, do we want to start with Gohan?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do Gohan. This is going to be his beast form. And this was the one he earned in the Dragon Ball superhero movie and completely overshadowed Piccolo.
I know a lot of people like this form. I am not a fan. I think that this one is, like you said with the Golden Ozaru riding on the coattails, this one feels like it's riding on the coattails of Super Saiyan 2 Gohan's transformation hard.
It's weird because I thought they were trying to lean into some of the Ultra Instinct vibes with the way that this one looked. I don't know. I wasn't sure what the design direction for this one was supposed to be.
And as you're saying that, like, maybe that's the case, but to me, that is a negative, honestly, because now it's just confusing. It's like, okay, Goku has Ultra Instinct with this, like, silver hair, and Gohan has Beast form with silver hair?
Yeah.
It's like, okay.
I don't know what this form's supposed to be tapping into because his journey so far has been, like, going through these mentors and getting stronger from one to the next. But we also get like the Cell moment and now this moment where he taps into like his deep wells of power through rage or emotional moments. I don't know what Gohan's story arc is supposed to be. I'm very confused. I don't know where beast form fits into all of this. I mean, don't get me wrong. The scene is badass. Him firing off a special beam cannon, cool as hell. I don't care. If someone says it doesn't make sense, I don't listen to them because I only care about cool things. This form, I don't know what narrative it's supposed to be telling me. I mean, his hair is awfully spiky in it. I don't know if you've noticed.
I also, you and I have talked about this. I personally don't like the massive hair that he has, but it's just, I think that is one of my other big issues with this form is the narrative elements for Gohan, in that you kind of get the impression, like you said, like the ultimate form to me, even though I don't like it like visually and they dropped the ball on some of those narrative elements, I like the direction that they were trying to go with the ultimate form for Gohan, in that it's, it's deviating from Super Saiyan. It's about his like inner power and inner strength. It's, the training with the gods, maybe that more like peaceful protector element. This seems, especially with the name and like the way it comes about, feels like moving the complete other direction for Gohan and his character. And you're like, okay, well, which is it? Like, how does Gohan derive his power? Is it, divine serenity, or is it just I'm angry and I got big number power level?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I don't know what to make of this. It's definitely, I mean, at least it's more interesting than his mystic form where you can't even really tell that he's in it. So they tried doing something. So visually speaking, they made an attempt. There's an effort there to at least put something on the screen for your eyeballs to look at. Mm-hmm. But I don't know what they're trying to tie it to. Don't his eyes turn like red or something like that? Don't they add some more color to them?
His eyes turn red. We also missed that detail with Orange Piccolo. His eyes also are red in Orange Piccolo form, which I'll be honest, I don't like for either of them.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know the direction they're trying to go with it. It feels mostly like another just palette swap. I mean, it's a cool scene. It's a really fun scene in the movie, but the transformation itself is just it's just kind of some icing on the cake. I feel like it's really just hollow calories, and I can't rate this one very high. I like the scene that it's in, but it's not really a transformation that I think really has legs.
It's pretty shallow to me. I'm going either C or D here. What are your thoughts?
Oh, I mean, that's tough.
The
I
I
think it's better than D tier, but I think it's bottom of C tier. I
Yeah.
All the ones in D tier actively do something to like kind of make me upset. I don't think this one makes me upset. It just kind of I don't I'm confused. Maybe I should be upset, but I'm actually just confused about this one.
I'll put it at the bottom of C. I There's a lot of stuff about this one that just upsets me.
Sure. All right. Bottom of C. You found your home, Beast Gohan. Uh but moving on. We have technically two forms here, and we'll start with the first one, which is Goku's Ultra Instinct Sign. And I guess the angels could be lumped into that, but this one's interesting. I also had, I think we talked about it a couple weeks ago, actually, whether this counted as a transformation or if it was a technique. So this is kind of a weird one to shove in here, but his hair color does change, and so that's a transformation.
Yeah, by Dragon Ball standards. I feel like people would get upset if we didn't talk about this one as a transformation. It's so strange. Like it falls into that like weird in between category. I think maybe because Goku is immortal, maybe that's why it becomes a transformation. Because the angels as divine beings, it seems more like a technique for them, where they're just the idea is their body is moving of its own accord, defending and attacking. Which Sign in particular here is kind of like the imperfected form of Ultra Instinct, and this is almost like it's almost like the defensive side of Ultra Instinct, where Goku is learning to defend without actually thinking about it. So he's moving much more quickly defensively. It doesn't, I mean, it has some visual cues. It has like the silver eyes. Goku's hair is mostly the same except like sticking up in a few places. It has definitely maybe like a slightly overblown aura in the anime. It's I like this as far as like the way that it's treated in combat. I like that it actually has an element specific to the transformation that is okay, you're very fast and you're able to dodge and do that without really thinking about it. Also, the visual elements of this in combat are super cool.
Yeah, that's oh man. I can't let that carry too much water though, just because this is where all the budget in the newest Dragon Ball we have went. It went into these big moments with Goku fighting, which they looked incredible. And kind of the teasing up to Ultra Instinct, I thought it was finally done. We all kind of knew where it was going, and it did eventually get there, and we got the payoff. I struggle with this one because this feels like just a precursor to full Ultra Instinct. So this for me, this doesn't feel like a separate form. I know it's classified as one, but I can't view this as other than just hints at reaching that next form. So I personally don't view this as a separate form. I know we're ranking it as one and it's classified as one, but me personally, I'm like, this is not a whole different form. This is just the build up to us getting into that next form. So that's why I'm struggling with this one. As far as visually, I mean it's fine. The aura's pretty neat looking, and you're right, his pupils do change color, but I don't find this to be the most visually interesting transformation in Dragon Ball either. So I like the narrative that's happening, but as far as the transformation itself, I'm very lukewarm to Ultra Instinct in general. And so the not full Ultra Instinct is even more lukewarm for me.
Sure, I get that. I will say I do like that I like that it's not a Super Saiyan transformation, but more specifically, I like that this, even though they haven't really done it, I like that this could be achieved by anybody, really. It's not locked away behind the Super Saiyan genes or the S cells. So that carries a little bit of weight. But yeah, I agree with most of what you said there. I think I like it a little bit more than you might, Dayton, but it's not super visually interesting. Most of what I like about it is the fighting elements of it.
Oh yeah, all the high budget fights with the new age animation stuff looks fantastic. Um but yeah, as far as the transformation itself goes, for me it's Goku with a silvery aura and silver eyes, and the narrative is what it probably needs to be for what they were trying to do. So the narrative's fine. I don't find it to be any particular part of it to be super memorable. Um yeah, this feels very average to me. So anywhere near average would be where I would put it. If you want to argue a little higher, then go for it. But I'm very lukewarm about this.
Yeah, I think the one beat that I like probably a little bit more than what you're expressing is just at least it has elements of like he fights differently with this transformation. So I mean, it sounds like we're probably talking somewhere in the C tier, which is getting pretty expansive here. So, I mean, where would do you think this is? Let's use Super Saiyan God as kind of like a marker here. Do you think it's better or worse than Super Saiyan God?
I mean, oh man, that's a tough one because I feel like a lot of the visual design elements are similar. It's probably slightly, I don't know. It's probably slightly better than Super Saiyan God, just because Super Saiyan God's narrative going into it, I kind of dislike. Not a lot, but I kind of dislike it. Whereas the elements going into this, I don't dislike as much. So I guess I'll just narratively speaking, I think I like this a little bit better than Super Saiyan God.
Yeah, let's put it above Super Saiyan God then too, because like I said, I like the fighting elements of it. But that brings us to the fully mastered Ultra Instinct form, which this one, at the very least, is visually distinct.
Yeah, so we've got the full on silver hair, we get the crank to 11 aura around him, and we even get some pretty cool sounding roars coming out of him with like the kind of echoey effect when he goes in on the attack. So there's a lot of interesting elements that are really poured into this one to kind of at least make it appear different than a lot of the other color swaps.
Yeah, so this one, I mean, as you called it, it largely visually is just a palette swap. But I like that it's a palette swap from his base form. It's not a palette swap from Super Saiyan, which I think is a bonus. It's again, I like the fighting elements of it. Not only does it visually look cool, but they do a great job of the visuals give you the feel of what they're describing this transformation to be. It's supposed to be very fast, very much just like moving on your own. And Goku, there are moments where Goku's fighting like he just closes his eyes and he's just like moving on his own. His body's doing what it needs to do to defend himself against Jiren. It looks phenomenal. It really gets that point across of like what type of fighting and transformation this is. I like this one a lot. And even for a palette swap, I really like the white and silver hair. Sometimes the aura gets a little overblown, but otherwise I think it looks really, really cool.
Yeah, and I mean there are some of those moments too, and they're definitely like anime moments where you see Goku kind of charge in and then, you know, there's that pause and then you see Jiren got hit 30 times with it or whatever. So you can tell that Goku's on the speed side of things rather than just the raw power, and he's basically moving at a rate that Jiren can't even keep up with. I think it's fun. I I don't know. I think it's better than the other palette swaps we've talked about. And
Easily.
they definitely do put an effort into making this form feel special. So they are rolling out the red carpet a little bit with this one, where some of the other ones, it feels like they pop up and then they're thrown away and we're off to the next one. We actually spent some time with this one, which is nice.
Yeah. I won't go into it too much, but they in the manga too, it gets some really good special treatment, especially like the training for it and stuff. I also really like the moment of like Beerus and Whis on the sidelines when Goku finally gets into this form, and Beerus is like, he's done it, hasn't he? And Whis is like, oh yeah. And then the gods all stand up in the stands to like recognize Goku's achievement of Ultra Instinct. That is really cool.
Yeah, there's definitely some cool moments tied to this one, which I do like. So there are some good narrative beats, and yeah, I think it's handled pretty well.
Yeah. As far as rating it, I don't think I could put this below B. I would go either A or B. Personally, what are you thinking?
I think it's a high B, and I don't put it in A mostly because everything else, like everything in A, currently has a very unique like visual distinction. I still think this one's a color swap at the end of the day. I think it's
Fair.
the best color swap, but I don't find it to be. I personally don't think it's very visually interesting. I think making his hair silver doesn't do it for me. And he's got a cool looking aura, neat, but that I don't know. That only goes so far with me. So just looking at it, I don't think it's the most interesting transformation to look at. Fighting style wise, I wish we would have seen more of the training towards it in the actual anime. Like we had so much filler, and it would have been nice to see a little bit more of that build up and that work and that training. Like we saw some of it, right? We saw glimpses for like a second, but I would have liked to have seen more of that training. Maybe I would feel a little differently. But just watching the series, I don't know. I thought it was fine.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point that we didn't touch on. That I actually do really like that this form is foreshadowed in the very first arc of Super. But I also get what you mean in that we didn't see a lot of that training, where Whis is basically telling Goku and Vegeta, like, you're wasting time thinking about your movements and your actions. You need to do it without thinking.
Yeah, we had like an episode or two of that, but we'll have like a 10 episode filler arc somewhere.
I get what you mean. I also I know what you mean about the visuals. It's not super interesting, but I like that it, in the like white or silver hair, ties to the angels. Pretty much all the angels have like that white or silver hair, so it ties in there narratively a
Doesn't
little
the clown
bit.
have orange hair?
The
Oh,
clown
he's the god
is
of destruction. That's right.
yeah, he's the
Yeah.
god of destruction, not the.
No,
not
you're
the
right.
angel.
Yeah, they all pretty much do have the white hair, and so he gets the white hair. That's neat.
I like the tie-in. It's small, but I like it. Let's see then. You said B. I was leaning A or B, so it sounds like probably towards the top of B.
It's either low A or high B, wherever your heart wants.
Ooh, I'm really tempted to put it in A, but since I was leaning A or B and you said B, I think it deserves to be at the very top of B then. Yeah, I think that one could go into A, but I think with us both kind of chiming in there, that seems appropriate.
And that tackles all of the transformations that we're ranking.
Yeah, as if this recording weren't long enough, we could have put in another few dozen transformations in here.
My gosh, yeah. So let's buzz through these honorable mentions. First on the docket is Vegeta and his Super Saiyan Blue evolution.
This is only on here because I want to shit on this one. This felt like they were trying to throw Vegeta a carrot in the Tournament of Power, and it was it felt disrespectful to my favorite character. Like, here, you get a transformation that's as good as Goku's Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken, but it's not even going to touch his Ultra Instinct coming up.
My gosh. Yeah, the way they just obsolete a character almost instantly. Oh, yeah.
And
You just want your side characters to just get a little bit of time in the limelight, like 5 minutes.
yeah. I also was talking about Super Saiyan Rage in here. Dayton didn't even know what that was, which admittedly, it's basically an aura. It's practically not a transformation. It's when Trunks is fighting Zamasu and gets like a blue and gold aura. It's silly. It shouldn't even be there, in my opinion. It's just a way of making Trunks relevant in the fight.
I mean, I just view it as artistic interpretation. But if that's what we want to do, then you can have your Super Saiyan Rage Trunks. Congratulations.
Yeah. The next one is
Cell turns into an egg in like a larva form and stuff. So those are technically transformations, but we're not ranking those.
The next ones are some weird ones. Baby from GT technically has a bunch of transformations, which is one of the reasons I didn't even want to touch it. Many of them are when he's in Vegeta's body, so it's technically like, technically like arguably Super Saiyan transformations, just with somebody taking over Vegeta's body. That's why it's in the honorable mentions. And the last two are actually the non-canonical movies, just transformations that I think are super cool. One is Cooler's final form, where he literally looks like the Shredder from Ninja Turtles. It's just super cool. The other one is Janemba, when he goes into his more sleek Valentine's Day color palette form. I won't talk about that too much because Dayton and I are going to watch that movie in the future.
Oh God, I can't wait.
That's a cool one. I think that's all of them, though.
Oh, it better be. Oh my God, after 3 hours, I hope we covered it. Shoot, there's probably a few more we should have covered, but that's all you guys are getting.
I'm sure people will tell us in comments or Discord or Twitter or something if we missed their favorite transformation.
I honestly, one thing I do want to touch on real quick is I can't believe a couple of the ones that made it into the Z tier that I wasn't expecting to like so much, specifically the Uzaro form.
Yeah, you know, I wasn't really thinking that was going to be Z tier, but we even put it at the top of Z tier because as soon as we started talking about it, I couldn't think of anything bad about it. It's fantastic.
Like it does everything perfectly. It serves a great narrative purpose. It's visually interesting. There are up and downsides to it. I mean, what is there not to like about it? And they only use it really when they need to. And thankfully, whatever Gold Nazaru is its own category, so we don't even count that.
Yep, we don't speak about that. That's GT stuff. I also find it funny that, I mean, of course, I'm not shocked that Super Saiyan, the original Super Saiyan, got into Z tier, but it's pretty funny that both you and I, Dayton, like Frieza and Cell's first and weakest forms out of all of them. I don't know. There's just something funny about that to me.
They're so interesting and quirky when you don't have to design a character to be powerful. You just have to design them to be interesting, and it really shows here.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's everything we had to cover. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about this topic, Dayton?
Oh, God, yeah. When I wake up tomorrow, I'll let you know.
That sounds like that's going to be it for this episode of Instant Transmission, where we discuss everything Dragon Ball. This has been your host, Todd.
And Dayton.
Don't forget, we are on Patreon and Discord. If you want to help us power up to our final form, you can find us at patreon.com/ITDB podcast and on Discord. The Discord link you can find in the episode description, or you can find all of our links on Linktree at linktr.ee/ITDB podcast.
God, that is such a weird URL. Oh my gosh.
I don't know why they did it that way, but all of our podcast episodes come out every other Monday morning, so you can enjoy Dragon Ball goodness stuff on your commute. Please like, subscribe, review, whatever those things are. Thank you guys so much for your support. Be sure to join us next time as we get big and green in Dragon Ball Z movie number 4, Lord Slug. Alien invaders are coming to Earth to make a wish on the Dragon Balls and destroy the planet. Seems like a running theme. But they're green aliens this time. Will this green menace get his wish without interference from our heroes? What non-transformation will Goku put out to save the day? Will we get mugged if we find ourselves on Iguana Street? Find out next time. And to all our fellow Dragon Ball fans, stay safe out there, and remember to keep rocking the dragon.
Oh my god, dude, I'm gonna piss my goddamn pants. Get me out of this podcast. Oh.